on the urgent need to be part of this liberation project of all the ethnic nationalities that are entrapped in the union of death Nigeria has become for them. Following the events happening in Nigeria today and always, I am sure nobody is happy with Nigeria as currently constituted. However, the owners of their respective ancestral lands in the South and Middle Belt formed a strong alliance for the single purpose of self-determination. This alliance is called NINAS, the Nigeria Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination, which declared a constitutional force majeure, CFM, on the 16th of December 2020. NINAS has three blocks: the Lower Niger, the Yoruba, and the Middle Belt blocks. NINAS cannot be pensioned without connecting it to the Lower Niger Congress. So, seeing and recognizing the enormous good work the Lower Niger Congress had been doing all these years, these few individuals formed a media team to help the Lower Niger Congress bring these messages of hope, trust, and truth to all our peoples in our homeland. These peoples include Anang, Ibibio, Efik, Ishan, Ijaw, Idoma, Igbo, Kalabari, Bini, Itshekiri, Urobo, Obolo, Ogoni, Ogoja, Ugep, and so many others. Join us today and be part of the People's Revolutionary Movement for total freedom from the oppressive and brutal caliphate-imposed document called 1999 Fraudulent Constitution. Power belongs to the people. Lower Niger Radio is your voice of liberation.
Don't touch the dial.
Nigeria government isn't only in bed with the terrorists, but they are enabling them, protecting them, and the president doesn't speak against them because they are his tribesmen and members of Islamic movement that wants to overpower Nigerians and institute Islamic State across Nigeria, not just in the Arewa part of Nigeria. It's unfortunate. Just yesterday, Tuesday, over 30 passengers in a bus got burnt in Sokoto. And these are most likely southern travelers in that state that got burnt. You will never hear the president speak against them. President Buhari fails to describe Sokoto bus burning of 30 Nigerians by bandits as terrorism. This is being reported by AtlanticPosting.com on December 8th. Nigeria President Muhammadu Buhari has continued to make light of the significance of the mass murderous campaign of some killer tribesmen. His tribesmen, the Fulani herdsmen terrorists, who had been categorized in the Global Terrorism Index as the fourth deadliest terrorist group in the world, by failing to describe the Tuesday mass murder by bandits in Sokoto of 30 Nigerian travelers who were burnt down in a bus. President Buhari said, while expressing sadness on Wednesday, a day after, over the gruesome attack on innocent travelers on Wednesday, I am very distressed at the manner of death visited on these hapless citizens who were undertaking a legitimate journey to another part of the country. It shows that the evil this administration is confronting is one that requires the support and involvement of all Nigerians. No, your government is the one enabling the terrorists. You gave them over $300 million just a few years ago. The military and police does not confront them because they are the president's people. They are doing the work of Allah to kill Muslims, especially, to kill Southern Christians. I extend deep condolences to the families of the victims as I assure that the security agencies will continue to give their all, yes, to bring to an end the oppression of these despicable people. However, President Buhari should know that only terrorists embark on mass murder of scores of people. Bandits go pillaging and robbing. According to a report by Reuters, at least 30 passengers on a bus in Nigeria's Sokoto state were burned to death when gunmen touched it on Tuesday. Police and residents said, in yet another reminder of growing insecurity and in Africa's most populous country. Gunmen, known locally as bandits, have in the past year carried out violent attacks targeting villagers and commuters traveling on highways and kidnapped hundreds of school children for ransom in the north of the country. I must add here also that Benue State, Plateau State, these states in the Middle Belt has been experiencing mass murders, mass killings by the same government, that the same terrorists Fulani group that has even threatened the state governor, the governor of Benue State, Governor Autumn. His life has been threatened by the Fulani. And yet, the maximum ruler in Abuja doesn't see the need for state police. He doesn't see the need for referendum. This is what we're talking about. Referendum is unavoidable in Nigeria to address all these killings, all these extrajudicial killings and state collusion in the act of terrorism against the indigenous nationalities. Sanusi Abubakar, spokesman for the Northwestern Sokoto State Police, said the bus was carrying 24 passengers when it was set alight by armed men and that 7 people had escaped with injuries and taken to hospital. The 2 residents who reached the scene and helped retrieve bodies told Reuters that the bus was overloaded and the bodies were burnt beyond recognition. Nigeria always distorts the facts. Every time, from the top to bottom, the president goes to the UN floor, and right on the floor of the United Nations, he is lying, telling the rest of the world lies, talking about famine as against terrorist activities that his government is supporting. He will be talking about desertification, how people are leaving Libya to go other places, without talking about the fact that he opened the borders of Nigeria to let in terrorists to oppress the people. They counted body parts of at least 30 people, including women and children. The residents said the villagers were ambushed on a road linking the Sabon Bini local government area and the village of Gidambawa in Sokoto State. Bandits move around on motorbikes and are known to hide in forests where they often keep kidnapped victims while awaiting ransom payments. Now, this is the Nigeria that we are seeking to reset by way of referendum. And this is the message of Ninas. Referendum. The people need to get involved in what is going on to themselves, to their lives, through referendum vote. It's a democratic process. The Nigerian government is skirting around it. The president said that those who are talking about referendum haven't described what they mean. Well, Mr. President, it is a vote. People will vote yes or no. In the simplest way of explaining it to you. Hopefully you will get it one of these days, and soon too.
Say no to 1999 Constitution. Say yes to ethnic self-determination. We have a right to fight for our freedom. We must arise and save our nation. You want good road, you sign the petition. Better work, oh, sign the petition. Clean water and light, sign the petition. Security, sign the petition. Healthcare, sign the petition. Better schools, oh, sign the petition. Housing project, sign the petition. Hope for the future, sign the petition. My people, and we never tire for these leaders where they oppress us every day. We need to free ourselves before water pass garri pata. Wetin we need now na to comot to this year 1999 constitution. We don't dabaru everything finish. We need to make another new one by a referendum. We go make region control their resources. My people, no they waste time yo. As you dey hear this message, run now, go to www.ninasffn.org. Make you sign that petition today. No they waste time mo. The time for change is now.
Jesus, while speaking of people who hear him and follow him, described such as a house that is built on a rock. He said, those that hear him are like a man which built an house and digged deep and laid the foundation on a rock. Now what this tells me is that foundation is important in whatsoever we want to build. And current Nigeria, by its own admission, was not set up on a good foundation. Current Nigeria that is anchored on the 1999 Constitution is on a shallow ground. There is nothing deep behind Nigeria. Even by Nigeria's own current institutions set up by Obasanjo or whoever, ICPC, is telling us that the cost of governance is unbelievable. So whatever they could not steal is used in servicing the government that is doing nothing for the people. So it says, restructure Nigeria into 6 regions. Budget office tells federal government. The reporters here are Tunde Ajaja, Tope Omogbolagu, and Kayode Oyero. December 4th, 2021, the Budget Office of the Federation has said restructuring Nigeria into 6 regions is pivotal to reducing the high cost of governance. It noted that the number of ministers also needs to be pruned and the number of political office holders and their aides reduced, lamenting that the huge recurrent expenditure had constrained the provision of good roads, steady power supply, health care services, quality education and quality shelter, etc. This, it said, had contributed to observable underperformance of the economy, slow growth and current infrastructural challenges. These recommendations were contained in a report by the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Commission at its 3rd National Summit on Diminishing Corruption in the Public Sector, held at the State House Conference Center, Abuja, on Tuesday. That's ICPC, and Buhari attended this event. The event with the theme, Corruption and Cost of Governance, New Imperatives for Fiscal Transparency, was attended by the President, Major General Muhammadu Buhari. That tells me this is Punch reporting this. The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Tanko Mohammed, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, and the Chairman of ICPC, Professor Bolaji Owasanoye, SAN, among others. The ICPC report referenced the Budget Office as blaming the high cost of governance on bloated cabinet size, high cost of elections, corrupt budget practices, multiplicity of ministries, departments and agencies, and high number of political office holders and their aides. Even Osinbajo, it was revealed some years back that he had 30-something people in his office, Osinbajo, the vice president. And that's just mentioning people from his neck of the wood. It said a direct result of the expensive governance structure was that less than 30% of federal government's resources were available to fund the much-needed capital projects. However, the Budget Office, according to this document, recommended that the government should prioritize completion of ongoing projects, restructure Nigeria into 6 regions, and reduce the number of ministers, and build a more efficient civil service and conduct periodic staff audit. It added that Millennium Development Agencies, or MDAs, should consider government fiscal position in reviewing salaries, adopt a cost-effective electoral system, and limit the number of aides of political office holders. While highlighting the drivers of the high cost of governance, the document quoted the Budget Office as saying that Nigeria has a large cabinet with 27 ministers, 16 ministers of state, and 27 ministries, adding that MDAs, Millennium Development Agencies, raise their personnel cost by engaging in indiscriminate recruitment without clearance from the Budget Office. Nigeria is a dysfunctional country. Everything is upside down with the country. Nigeria has about 934 MDAs with duplicated functions in 541 public corporations and enterprises. And what this ICPC is advising will not happen because the unitary system will not allow this to happen. All that they are doing now is just trying to skirt around the call for multi-regional referendum vote for our people to either recommit or decide to leave Nigeria. This is why they are skirting around, creating all these lies, all these jokes that they are maybe trying to make a difference. The Budget Office lamented that personnel costs for the past 3 years gulped 9.7 trillion naira, adding that cost of governance had generally been on the rise and personnel costs represent significant proportion of the spending. According to the report, MDA's recruitment spending rose from 3.61 trillion in 2015 to almost double, 5.26 trillion in 2008, and 7.9 trillion in 2020. By now, it has more than doubled up. This excludes the cost of government-owned enterprises and transfers to the National Assembly and the National Judicial Council. Those are the areas that share the Nigerian money, the oil money that is flowing from the Niger Delta, the riverine areas. These are the agencies sharing it. The federal government, the court, the National Assembly, and the Judicial Council. The report continues. Recurrent spending accounted for 40% of actual recurrent spending in 2020, while overhead was just 3%. Cost of governance has generally been on the rise, and personnel costs represent a significant proportion of the spending, it added. The President, Vice President Yomi Osibanjo, and several other leaders had repeatedly stated the need to reduce the cost of governance. Only in their words, they don't do nothing about it. But not much has been done to actualize it. Nigeria can draw up all kinds of documents and reports, and all speeches will be made. Different people will show up with their 70 vehicle escort or convoy. At the end of the day, nothing is done as a follow-up to have it done, to get the job done. And all this is happening because Nigeria is a dead country begging for burial. And the burial of Nigeria will happen through referendum vote. That's what NINAS has been peacefully, quietly, steadily advising, and it's not looking away from it because it's a job. It's a job that must be done. Meanwhile, there has been an increasing public clamor for restructuring, with socio-political groups like Afenifere, Ohaneze, Pan-Niger Delta Forum, and Southern Middle Belt Leaders Forum, Northern Elders Forum, Arewa Consultative Forum, and the Coalition of Northern Groups. And I must add, NINAS is the body that covers all the groups mentioned in the Delta, Middle Belt, and Afenifere, That's this area, these groups are partners with Ninas. And all that you're hearing is that these groups now, the Afenifere, Ohaneze, Pan-Niger Delta Forum, the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum, Northern Elders Forum, Arewa Consultative Forum, and the coalition of northern groups, insisting that it is the only way the country could return to the path of progress. Restructuring. The presidency had, in response to the agitations, asked the proponents to approach the National Assembly with their request. Like National Assembly hold solution to Nigeria's existential problem? No, they don't. We're talking about the Constitution. The National Assembly cannot give us Constitution. The people can. The people. Nigerians born in Nigeria or born outside Nigeria, Nigerians that are all over Nigeria, in the Middle Belt, in the southern Nigeria, and in diaspora all over the world. These are the people that will give Nigeria new constitutions for their regions to either recommit or go for outright separation. Why we can't punish those behind budget duplication? Budget Office. The Director General of the Budget Office of the Federation, Mr. Ben Akabweze, on Friday disagreed with the ICPC. Now, this is a dysfunctional system. Look what the Budget Office is now doing. They are countering the ICPC. Mr. Ben Akabweze on Friday disagreed with ICPC, saying only 185 projects were found to be duplicated in the 2021 budget. Can you imagine that? No shame. And not 257 as announced by the commission. Jesus. He said it was beyond the responsibility of the budget office to discipline those responsible for the duplication because the staff of the MDAs who prepared their budgets were not answerable to his office. Always passing the buck, just like Muhammad Buhari. He continued passing the buck until 4 or 5 years. Then he started ignoring the people entirely. Otherwise, he was always blaming the other government, the government before him. An Islamist. He, however, argued that errors were inevitable since the budget was prepared by human beings. There you go. But that those culpable for the willful duplication of projects should be fished out by the ICPC and prosecuted. Always passing the buck. Dysfunctional country. The ICPC chairman had at the summit said 257 projects amounting to 20.138 billion naira were duplicated in the 2021 budget. That's how money is stolen from the system. That's why there will be potholes all over the road, all over the country. That's why nothing works. There will be no electricity. There will be no water supply. There will be nothing. There will be no social safety net for the people. It will never happen because the country is being run by criminals at every level, from the person you meet at the door to the top, including the presidency, and from everybody. Something is happening at the local government and in the state offices. It is messed up everywhere. And they are skirting around the call for referendum. He said the ICPC came up with a report which they sent to us about duplicated projects in the budget. We did our own review and found that 54 of those projects were actually not duplicated. There were issues with project description which made them look the same. They never found out, they never did anything about all this until ICPC came out with their report. And yet, people are still in their offices, in their positions. Nobody is disciplined, nobody is fired, nobody is facing trial. Every project in the budget has a unique identifier, and for the projects found to be duplicated, funding was withheld. 185 projects were found to be duplicated, 54 were not. What a country. Akubweze said there were about 20,000 projects in the budget and that If only about 200 projects were duplicated, it amounts to about, now he's putting a very miserable percentage to this, 0.01%. That means it's very insignificant. It's insignificant. It doesn't matter. It's nothing. We shouldn't be bothered about that. He added that the total MDS in the budget estimate was under 4 trillion naira, and that the duplicated projects valued at about 20 billion was about 0.005%. See how Nigeria minimized the impact of their criminality? Government officials. They make it look like it's nothing. He added, every system has a level of tolerance in terms of error. God forbid. It is human beings that prepared it. Some may be erroneous, some may be willful duplication, but the important thing is that there is self-correcting mechanism. The best of systems in the world, yes, have audit attached to them because there is an acknowledgement that something can be wrong. We work collectively with the ICPC, and it is part of its role as correcting mechanism. He, however, said that the budget office was working towards a zero level of such duplications. I said it earlier that Nigerians are never without letters or defenses. They will always try to explain it away. He added, at the level of the budget office, what we do is withhold funding for such projects, and to that extent, it doesn't create the sort of problem you alluded to, misuse of state resources. This is one government agency to another, and they have no shame about how dysfunctional they are. As to the discipline of those people, that's outside our own responsibilities. Always passing the buck. We look to the day where we have a structure within the budget office where the budget office can deploy its own personnel across the MDS to hold them directly accountable. The staff who are involved in preparing this budget in the MDS are not accountable to the budget office, and we have no line of responsibility to question them. He said the ICPC, with its investigative powers, would invite the people involved to find out if the duplications were willful actions intended to defraud the government or they were erroneous. This is a country where excuses flows from the top to bottom. And then moves from bottom again back to top. There's no responsibility by those who unfortunately are calling the shots across the country. And after all this, what do you find? The only option that is left for Nigeria is to go through a binding referendum so that this stupidity can begin to come under check. Right now, Nigeria doesn't have any credible leadership. The presidency is directly involved in terrorist activities in the country. The presidency of Muhammadu Buhari. And so, what's the solution? I will not be helpful if I don't mention the solution here. The solution is a binding multi-regional referendum, and that's what NINAS is helping put together. Buhari and his government doesn't have to do too much now. All they have to do is to seek help, and they will find it. The help is within their reach. How to get Nigeria sorted out. Nigeria cannot self-fix. Like a deeply corrupt government like that of Muhammadu Buhari cannot clean up Nigeria, but he can initiate the referendum. He can help Nigeria get to the right path. And history will remember him for that also, and for other roles he has played so far. Delaying this can only extend the sorrow, the agony, the hatred, the malice, the national disintegration can only become more violent the more we prolong this. Here's a very interesting article by one Chudi Okoye of Oka Times. Igbo Grandee's wrong-headed plea for Kano's release. There was news report today that a group of Igbo Grandees really grandees, billed as highly respected Igbo greats, a tag designed by them, trundled out to Abuja to meet with President Muhammadu Buhari, asking for an unconditional release of Mr. Nnamdi Kanu, the incarcerated leader of the Independent Peoples of Biafra, or Indigenous Peoples of Biafra, IPOB. The delegation included Chief Mbazulike Amechi, a First Republic parliamentarian and Minister of Aviation, Dr. Chukwuemeka Ezeife, a former governor of Anambra State, Bishop Sunday Onoha of the Methodist Church, and Chief Barrister Godi Owazurike, former president of Igbo Social Cultural Organization, Igbo Cultural Group, Aka Ikenga. Buhari received them well and promised to consider their request. See report here. See report by Premium Times Nigeria. The opinion that follows below will probably sound insensitive coming from an Igbo man, but I think the Igbo grandees who went to plead with Buhari to release Kanu made a grievous mistake. No doubt the Igbo grandees meant well. They probably felt they had to act, likely on behalf of a scandalized Igbo political elite facing increasing pressure from a radicalized Igbo rank and file. But in my opinion, their plea to President Buhari is constitutionally illiterate. It is politically inastute, and it is an ill-considered move that will likely hobble IPOB's long-term revolutionary strategy. It also goes against everything Nnamdi Kanu has been saying on the radio for how many years now? That people who are for one Nigeria are the one asking that Kanu be released to their custody while they are still insisting on one Nigeria. They weren't asking for a referendum. They weren't asking for anything. And these are part of the presidency of Igbo extraction campaigners. They are behind all this. Buhari was right to have stated, as reported in response to the Igbo delegation, that its plea offends a fundamental tenet of the Nigerian Constitution, which is separation of powers. This constitutional principle was first fully articulated by Baron de Montesquieu, one of the great political philosophers of the Enlightenment era, in his seminal work, The Spirit of the Laws, published in 1748. The principle was invoked by Montesquieu as a major critic of feudal absolutism in France and elsewhere in Europe, and it greatly influenced the constitutional ideals of both the American and the French revolutions. It has since become a cornerstone of modern constitutional government. In Nigeria, we have adopted and are deepening this constitutional principle as a revolutionary departure from the tripartite absolutism of our history. First, the feudal absolutism that flourished in several proto-Nigeria territories, then British imperialist absolutism, and finally military absolutism. The case against Nnamdi Kanu is now sub judice, and is yet to be dispositioned. Therefore, it is unclear if Buhari actually has the power to intervene legally in the matter. Of course, the president has significant latitude under Section 175 of the 1999 repudiated Constitution, which deals with the exercise of prerogative of mercy. The provision imbues a Nigerian president with the power to grant any person concerned with or convicted of any offense created by an act of the National Assembly a pardon, either free or subject to lawful conditions. I doubt if this power can be exercised prior to the disposition of a case, but maybe our constitutional lawyers can weigh in on the interpretation. Aside from the constitutional issue, there is also the political implication for the Igbos of its leaders or purported leaders going to Abuja to plead on behalf of Kanu. What is the object of their plea? Are they asking for forgiveness, which would sound like a suggestion or an admission that Kanu and his IPOB are doing something wrong? These guys are shaming themselves. If so, the question arises as to what they think IPOB is getting wrong. Is it the charge of Igbo marginalization and persecution which IPOB has levied against the Nigerian state, or is it the particular revolutionary tactics adopted by the group? What are the Igbo grandees pleading that Buhari should forgive if the thesis of their plea is indeed forgiveness? Even if the Igbo leaders did not mean to ask for forgiveness, unquote, it will certainly be imputed as such by Buhari and his regime. They will read the intervention as an apology. They will construe it as Igbo leaders begging for forgiveness, which will be rather unfortunate and ridiculous. There are at least two grievous implications from such an imputation by the Buhari regime. One pertains to near-term Igbo political interests, and the other to IPOB's long-term revolutionary project. If the Buhari regime reads the intercession of the Igbo grandees as a plea for forgiveness, Buhari could over-leverage his powers under Section 175 of the Constitution to pardon Kanu, but he will exact a heavy political price from the Igbos for the concession. 1. We can forget the idea of an Igbo president in 2023, and there is no need for this because the Igbo are better served going for referendum and shutting down further electoral arrangements in under current 1999 Constitution. The Nigerian state, or the dominant elite therein, already feels that conceding the presidency to the Igbo is a major concession, even a risk. Buhari may be advised by his political strategists, and the willing president may accept the advice to free Nnamdi Kanu as a substitute for conceding the presidency to the Igbos in the near term. More than the presidency, Buhari and his anti-Igbo coterie could also leverage the forgiveness of Nnamdi Kanu to continue and even intensify federal disinvestment of Igbo land. Igbo land has suffered from a systematic policy asphyxiation since the end of the Civil War in 1970, despite the no victor, no vanquished nostrum enunciated after the war. We went from a hot shooting war in 1967-1970 to a cold war of policy neglect thereafter. This has resulted in relentless deindustrialization and infrastructure decay in Igbo territories. The plea to pardon Nnamdi Kanu could become another chip to be used by the anti-Igbo forces in the Nigerian regime to further reduce federal investment in Igbo land, a heavy price at that. But it is not just the geopolitical implication for the Igbos that matters here. What would become of IPOB's revolutionary strategy if its virulent leader was pardoned with conditions by the Nigerian state? We know now from the constant complaints of Nnamdi Kanu and his lawyers that the guy is no Nelson Mandela who refused P.W. Botha's offer in 1985 to release him from prison. This is very true, subject to certain conditions. Rejecting the terms offered by the apartheid government for his release, Mandela said no to Botha. I cannot sell my birthright, nor am I prepared to sell the birthright of the people to be free. I cannot and will not give any undertaking at a time when I and you, the people, are not free. Your freedom and mine cannot be separated. This was 1985 that Mandela said this. Mandela was 66 years old at the time and had been in prison for about 23 years. Yet he refused an offer to be freed from prison if it would hobble the revolutionary goals of his party, the ANC, which has to overthrow the apartheid system under which South African blacks labored. But we are seeing now that our Nnamdi Kanu is no Mandela. Since his incarceration, his lawyers and associates have been howling about his suffering. He has used his IPOB to terrorize his own people, undermining Igbo economy, preventing school children from attending school, and generally imposing a reign of terror in Igbo land. Buhari and his gang will no doubt perceive that Kanu has little intolerance for the austerities of life under incarceration, this being the evident reason why he is sabotaging and terrorizing his own people and pressuring Igbo elites to plead for his release. So it would stand to reason that Buhari will impose severe conditions against IPOB's revolutionary quest in order to pardon Kanu. Does anyone think that Buhari will pardon Kanu and yet give him free rein to continue his radical attack on the Nigerian state, or even to continue to press the Igbo case? Not me. So whichever way one looks at it, this outing by Igbo grandees, though well-meaning, is a major strategic error, a blunder, I must add. It undermines not only IPOB's revolutionary agenda, but also larger geopolitical interest of Igbo people. It might be better for Kanu to go through the crucible of judicial trial and hopefully come out triumphant. The way he and his IPOB will retain the moral right to continue their agitation, even if they have to amend their strategy. And the Igbo people will not have considered anything in their demand for equal citizenship and equal opportunity in the firmament of Nigerian politics. Better still, we are better served suing for referendum, pushing for referendum along with the entire Lower Niger Territory, Oduduwa, and Middle Belt, because Nigeria is not heading anywhere. Where these Igbo grandees are obviously empowering a dictator, a teen god who thinks that he has the power of life and death in his hand. That's what they are doing by paying him a visit and making him feel that he can do whatever. That's unfortunate.
The hashtag NSAS report finally here. A lot of people, even though it's not been officially released, says it brings closure and a step towards healing for some of the victims.
Well, so many things have happened in this country that you don't know exactly where to begin to have an analysis, when it does appear that the government actively encourages the killing of its citizens, when the Constitution of Nigeria says the primary purpose of government is to protect lives and property. And I was waiting since 2-3 days to hear one fellow who answers Garba Shehu of Shehu Garba, who is a principal, is a senior advocate, always defending herdsmen and anybody who kills people in Benue and Plateau. And I haven't heard anything that Nigerian citizens were killed. Federal government hasn't said anything. A Supreme Court judge was almost kidnapped and attempted an attempt on her life. The federal government hasn't said anything. The Attorney General is there wishing thin and wishing down what he probably supposes. So, things are getting so confused that the only way to put it is that someday everybody will sit down to a banquet to face the consequences of his or her actions. That is the only preview, that no matter what it is, you must sit down at a banquet, either at God's judgment or even here on earth, to be able to answer the responsibility entrusted upon you by people, and you fail them. Because you are guilty of the good you never did, or you failed deliberately not to do. So, and there are so many examples of them in this country, that NSAS is another obvious thing. But thank God, with the courage of the judge and of Lagos State government, everybody knows, it's an APC top government. Yes. A performing government of APC too. Not just that it's an APC, it's a performing government of the situation notwithstanding. And they had the courage to say this. That shows you again, there are two governments. Somebody is running this government.
How do you think the government at the center, the APC at the center, will perceive the Lagos State government and the way? Because one would have expected, going by the way things are done in Nigeria, the pressure would have been mounted on by the Lagos State government, on the panel, not to come out with this kind of report, which they came out with.
Well, it is obvious, if you hadn't been back when I was here last, I did say that two people are running the government of Nigeria. It is now very clear. Malami, the Attorney General, and Lai Mohammed, the Minister of Information. Because repeatedly, Malami had done things that in a normal situation, he should be in jail. The president of this country nominated Mago as chairman of EFCC, and Malami wrote a letter to the National Assembly that he was corrupt. The president resubmitted the name again, and he read the same letter again. He's still the Attorney General of the Federation, and the senior legal law officer and advisor to the president of Nigeria. And look at what has happened with the $480 million. Where do you begin? His office was supposed to be involved in the attempted kidnap of Justice Mary Odele.
Allegedly.
Well, whether you call it allegedly or not.
Because he has denied.
Who in this country, people deny something. The people who were caught, are they from the moon?
The magistrate.
What has the federal government done to ascertain who came to that judge, the magistrate, who gave the magistrate instruction? Somebody must have given him an instruction to do what he did. Nobody is interested in those things. So if Mary Odele had died, this is the story we'll be telling this country, one of the finest in this country. If those hooligans had done something, we're all sitting there and say, oh, that's the way God wanted her to go. That's the typical Nigerian attitude. So I don't think president is in charge. There are people doing his dirty job for him, and I think he's comfortable with it. Not unfortunately.
Would you call it dirty job, or would you say he is excluded from the main conversations of governance? Because again, you are only as good as what your team tells you.
Well, I don't know whether, how else do you describe what Malami is doing if not a dirty job? Because it is convenient. They call it defense of the presidency, but is that defense of the presidency? What Shehu Garba is doing, is that defense of the presidency? When you remove truth from facts. You know, there's somebody I told that the best form of revenge is not to be like the one who committed the offense in the first place. Because time heals, reveals every secret. If you take time, the truth will be coming out. I don't know how he's going to end up, but it is unfortunate that this is what Nigeria is. But tell me how these citizens of this country can be patriotic with things like this, killing young boys and girls, students of higher institutions by their own government because they are demonstrating for what? Police brutality. That would have expected government to be interested. At least have a national inquiry. Let there be scapegoats, scapegoats, authentic scapegoats, not made-up scapegoats.
Yes, I was going to
that
say
you
that.
could use as an example to show that you are protecting your sons and daughters. And everybody has a right to demonstrate. In fact, I used to tell somebody that demonstration, protest, is a catalyst for dialogue. Once you protest, somebody must pay attention. And in paying attention, you invite the person to discuss. You know, it also follows what is happening in the Southeast. How can a young boy who was not born during the Civil War, in prison, languishing there, and Igbos religiously? In fact, somebody was telling me, a good friend of mine, was telling me that we should stop going to church on Sunday, used to work and then go to church on Monday, because the compliance Igbos have for Monday now is total. Nobody is interested. They tell you to hell with the money they will make on that day, just to make a point. Whether that point they are making is positive or negative, they're not interested.
But people like Fadam Baka has come out to refute that and say that it is causing more problems for the Southeast.
I don't listen to anything Fadam Baka says. Since he started selling Chimaroke will die, that person will die. That is not the job of a priest. It's a fake priest for me. No person who is a child of God, not to talk of a priest, will say that somebody will die. That's not what the Bible tells us. So since that incident, Chimaroke is still in the Senate. He has not died. So why should I take him serious? He says anything he likes, and there are people who are deceived. They call it adoration. I don't waste my time talking about such people. Absolutely not.
All right, Chief Dalolasi, let's talk about Anambra governorship election. We had a number of discussions before that election, counting down to that election. It's now come and gone. You had some predictions about that election, and you're thinking about that election as well. Are you satisfied with the outcome?
Satisfied would be an understatement. Because on two different occasions, twice here and one on Chinese television, I said, how do you begin to look at? Not because he attended my university, which is about the best in the country, I must unapologetically say.
Modestly so.
The best and the first.
Then.
Still best.
Then?
Still. So, and when you look at his pedigree, where he's coming from, it is difficult. Apart from the candidate of PDP and that of the Labour Party, brilliant guys, and I said it on TV that they're brilliant, and each of them, I told them their shortcomings, why they will not make it. It's difficult to see how you place in a civilized community a former advisor to the government, consultant to World Bank, governor of Central Bank, who stabilized the banking industry. People, we have short memories or convenient amnesia in this country, that there were times banks collapsed in this country. And those who were governors of Central Bank, they're still existing. People lost everything. I bought shares of more than 30 million naira in a bank, Oceanic Bank or something. It collapsed. I lost it up to today. I had 1.5 million shares. It came down to 50,000. I mean, what do you call it? But this young man came in, stabilized the banking industry. How many years now? Nobody's afraid to put his money in the bank. Isn't that a credit? That you believe that somebody like that will, do his excellent best, because he's a first-class student. And you don't expect anything less, So when you put him, comparatively looking at my brother, the APC candidate.
Smile through the new year with a healthy, bright smile.
This message is worthy of every one of us paying attention to it. We should be promise keepers to each other, to ourselves. We should say what we want to do, and we should do what we said we want to do. We should do what we promised to do. Kanu made a commitment to our people, and people died over this from 2015 till this moment. More than at least 2,000 Igbo youths. I don't want to exaggerate the numbers. More than 2,000, or at least 2,000 at least, died under Nnamdi Kanu's direction. And in all this, not once did I wish Kanu any harm. And our people never wished any harm to come to Nnamdi Kanu or his family or anybody. Kanu introduced ESN to war against our people, and these guys were beating people with machete, and even some beheaded people and did a lot of things. And today, earlier this year, Kanu made himself available to Nigeria, in Kenya, Nairobi of all places, a country that deported Fethullah Gulen's nephew to Turkey over allegations against his uncle, Fethullah Gulen, that lives in US, as being the person behind the coup that almost took out the Turkey Islamist, their current president. Now, Kanu is facing trial, and on many occasions, many of us have spoken out, including me, Stephen, that Kanu must be given justice. That is how normal societies operate. Nnamdi Kanu should be given justice. I do not expect anything other than true justice for Nnamdi Kanu. It is not what Igbo elders, when I remember that it's Chief Amechi Mbazulike that did this at 93. How could you undersell our people this way? This is one of the Igbo elders I respect. And many of our people respect him because he's always said the truth about what is going on with Nigeria. But why bring our people so low? Is that how low we have fallen in Nigeria? Nnamdi Kanu. I'm going to read what one of my friends commented on my post about this issue. He said, while I object to in all its ramifications, any Igbo person to fall by the sword of any Fulani, no matter his or her misdeeds, I think Nnamdi Kanu should live up to his promise of bringing Biafra to fruition or die trying. Yes. 50 Cent in one of his music said, get rich or die trying to get rich. Nnamdi Kanu claimed to have the master plan on how to restore Biafra, and he went rogue with it, sidestepping everybody. He did not carry our people along. He went on his own to set up what amounts to a private army. Anybody that challenges him faces threat. How are we going to get freedom that way? And all of a sudden, Kanu delivered himself to Nigeria by going to take apartment in Kenya and driving himself in the country. Basically, he took up residency in Kenya. And they arrested him at the airport and tortured him and probably shipped him to Nigeria, and then he's facing trial. And our people are going to beg Buhari for goodness sake. How could the great Igbo people support such a decision to go beg Buhari so that he will discontinue the case? Because Buhari is the president of Nigeria, so he can do anything. Our people are the number one enemy of Igbo people. Ndi Igbo, among Ndi Igbo, we find the greatest enemy facing the Igbo people. Mbazulike, you made a mistake. You are an old man. You should go to your grave knowing that we still respect you and that we will remember you. But on this particular issue, Mbazulike must apologize to Ndi Igbo and insist that Nnamdi Kanu should get justice from Nigerian court. Did Mbazulike discuss with Buhari the persecution of Ndi Igbo and the fact that there's not a single Igbo person is in the security architecture, heading the security architecture since Buhari became president? All the killings Buhari has been killing, it was Buhari that made IPOB a terrorist group because he tagged a non-violent group a terrorist group, and in fact, before then, they've been killing their members in their hundreds and burying them in mass graves. At the end of the day, the group now went rogue, and Buhari rolled more military weapons to our place. There are some people's daughters that are still in detention, little kids, people in their early 20s, young lady, 21, being arrested and being held for months. For what? You don't charge them to court, you hold them in police cell for months, violating their fundamental rights to fair justice and trial. If you arrest them for anything, you didn't charge them, you are holding them in detention for months. People's children. You lock up a lot of our people in jail all over Nigeria. For what? Being non-violent group? You kill them where they are having prayer meeting. For what? To bring out the violent in them, and now they become violent. You even kill more of our people. I do not want to be part of that Nigeria. A lot of us want to get out of that Nigeria. We are asking for a referendum, but not according to Nnamdi Kanu, but according to the Lower Niger Congress and NINAS, Nigeria Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination. That is the way to go. Not the crooked, roguish, individualized Biafra franchise. That is what it is. It is about Kanu and Nnamdi Kanu, nobody else. That's why over 2,000 would have died, but Kanu cannot go through the court and prove to Nigeria that Nigeria deserves to break up. Be alive saying it because we're asking that you receive justice, so that you go through trial and expose Nigeria, because Nigeria needs to be exposed. If you are really for the freedom of our people. I'm not saying this because you are in jail, but I'm saying it because you committed yourself to this. Many died as your house was being raided. 2017, September 14. Many of our people died in your father's house after you already left the house 24 hours before the military raided the house. You and your family members left. But other people died from our communities, from all over Igbo land. Why? Why humiliate our people? By going to appeal to Buhari on a matter that is in court. So we are encouraging Buhari to do whatever to continue, like he removed the Supreme Court Justice, Walter Onogen, who could have become the Supreme Court Justice, Chief Justice, and put Tanko Mohammed, the Sharia Supreme Court Chief Justice. Now, Mary Odili is about to succeed this Tanko Mohammed, who I understand is very sick. And they sent police to raid her house at Abuja. And you are telling us that he should go and withdraw Nnamdi Kanu's case? It is an opportunity for Buhari to be exposed. Kanu has an opportunity to expose Nigeria more. His trial should be made open. He should tell the truth about Nigeria in court, since he is already in the court with them. We insist that he remains safe, that he remains healthy, that nothing happened to him. He's our brother, yes, but he should get justice. That's my stand. He should send no emissaries. He should object to any negotiations on his behalf that exclude referendum and self-determination for the cause he numerously told us that he is willing to die for. That's the promise we heard and queued up, including me. That's the least he can do for all those who have already perished believing in him. I went on protest in the city of Calgary twice. One of the protests, I was standing alone holding Biafra flag and the snow was falling on me. It was freezing cold in this city. I led protest. I spoke at protest. That day, the Kurdistans were having their protest also about their separation from, like the Kurds, separating from northern Iraq and northern Syria. They held that referendum. Unfortunately, it's still blocked till now. The result, they had 95% yes on that referendum. On that very day, they were holding protest. I spoke in their protest and I spoke in the Biafra protest. I stood within Nnamdi Kanu because we came from far back, from Biafra Actualization Forum, a diaspora-based group under Owazurike in Masop. I spoke with Nnamdi Kanu after he came out of Owazurike's detention, 7 days detention. He told me that he is deeply committed to the cause of Biafra. I believed him. But when I found out 4 years ago that things were going different, that as soon as he came out of jail in Nigeria, his attitude, everything changed. And I pointed it out. I said, there is danger. What is going on? People said I was seeing wrong, that I was a saboteur. In fact, to go cap in hand begging the imaginary Buhari, remember he said Buhari is not Buhari, that it's a clone. We're not even going there. But the imaginary Buhari, to release him, is shoving it into the face of the Igbo, adding salt to injury and rubbing it in. And most brutalizing is the fact that those who are leading the charge to have him released are the very people that got us all in this mess. First Republic politicians and their new age compradors, like their new age compatriots, their fellow co-travelers. They got us underwater and now they are still looking forward to their accolades and essence. Rubbish. That reminds me, If Amechi Mbazulike was aviation minister in the First Republic, it means he worked with Zik. So he is still trying to subjugate us in Nigeria and make us look inferior to the Fulani. When we are talking about referendum vote to get out of this useless, baseless, better than dead. I mean, Nigeria is better finished, dead, than remaining a country. Because it's an apology to what a country should be. 3 million barrels of oil every day. And yet they are borrowing money. They are still receiving aid from a lot of, even Togo gives Nigeria aid if we look very well. Nigeria is a beggar nation. Nigeria shouldn't be in existence. Look, everything I'm saying is my opinion, and I quoted a comment from a friend, which is a post on my page. Nigeria is unworthy to exist as a country because Nigeria is a crime against humanity. If you are in doubt, 97 people were slaughtered at Lekki 2 Plaza. CNN reported it. Other news media reported it. 97 people got killed. Nigeria government is still lying to this day about it until a commission of inquiry came out with a report. November 15, just last week, that 97 people were killed in a 306-page report. The military and police killed people, removed their corpses, and came back to wash away their blood in order to conceal evidence. How can such a country have a future? It's impossible for Nigeria to have a future. It's absolutely impossible. Referendum can save Nigeria. If you don't go this way, if Nigeria don't go this way, greater danger lies ahead of Nigeria.
Because what you are asking, hold on one minute, is that this constitution should not be. And you expect that a total overhaul. Let me finish. You want a total overhaul of this constitution, and you liken it to the South African appetite. Okay, tell us the process to get into what we are saying, because the president also, do not forget, assumed office, or all the people you expect to do something about it, assumed office based on this document. So what is your practical step to getting this done?
South Africa in 1990 came to this bus stop where we have just arrived. The sitting government that was elected, and there was a parliament, Frederick de Klerk, he now, for the first time up to that time, accepted that the apartheid constitution could no longer be the basis of the South African society because it was imposed by a white minority to take the lands and the rights of the blacks, and that is exactly what we have here. The Jaw lost their land and their oil and gas to Nigeria because some military president under Gowa seized it by decree. The Lagos port belongs to Lagos people. Nigeria takes more than 2 trillion naira from this port every year. But from independence to date, not one controller general of custom of Yoruba origin. And therefore, if Gani Adams now say, how did we come to this? And he pick up arms, the discussion that should be holding is one in which the government of the day will have to accept that this apartheid constitution can no longer be the basis of Nigeria. We are not anarchists. In the suit we filed in 2007 against the constitution, we asked the court to give an order that will compel them within a period of 18 months to remain in office and work out that discussion that will lead to a new constitution. That's not too much to ask for, because South Africa did it. They accepted that the apartheid constitution had to go, and they called everybody.
Now, relying on them to work out a new constitution.
No, they are not saying so. In that terms of reference, they say how to incorporate whatever.
I'm asking you how you intend to arrive at a new constitution.
How it will arrive at is that the people, those who are trapped here, before going to make a central constitution, because a federation should have a federation of many constitutions. Up to 1966, we had 5 constitutions, because each of the federating units were like countries of their own that were now coming to cooperate, like Germany and France and Portugal doing European Union. That was the kind of constitution Awolowo had to manage Western region. That was the kind of constitution Obara had to manage Eastern region. But some people woke up in 1960s, threw all of those things away, and now locked us into this unitary arrangement. So we're saying that the first step is to ask those who will come, because tomorrow morning they will now begin to announce the names of their friends who are going to meet. We are not going to pay any attention to whatever government does. The conference is already on, and steps are being taken to take a referendum from those who are working their way out of this union, because the union has collapsed. If we do not accept in good time that it has collapsed and go to sit down to discuss how we will revive it, I tell you that under the instruments available to those who are choked here, and 3.5 million people have been killed in eastern Nigeria on this same question. OD have been wiped out, Okerenkoko have been wiped out, Obakere have been wiped out. All kinds of things are going on. Just the other day, 78 students were massacred in their sleep, because some people must be in power in Nigeria. They say they will make the country ungovernable, and they are making it ungovernable to date. And we are still thinking that there's a Nigeria. That Nigeria that will include a Sharia belt, in which I cannot function in Sokoto or Kano or Meduguri. I will not be part of that Nigeria. I will rather invest all my energy in how to take out my portion. If those who are saying they have conquered us and they are going to keep us by all means for all times insist that we cannot discuss, then we'll do whatever comes within our reach to do to take our portion.
Now let me ask you, Mr. Nadi,
yes.
if at the end of the day we are having reactions from Afenifere, for instance, we are having reactions from Ohanes and Igbo, we are having reactions from Arewa Consultative Forum,
been with all of them.
Be it speaking, saying that they do not, they will not agree for the name sovereign to be added to whatever conference. Now, let me ask you, would you say that these groups do not represent the blocks which they say they represent?
They do not speak for
and
the people.
If you do not agree with their representation, who are the people that you are talking to at this at this point about
back to 75%? Tambuwa said that all of them politicians constitute only 25%. He said it on the floor of National Assembly the day they resumed last week or so, that they constitute only 25% of the country's population. I'm here to speak on behalf of that unrepresented.
And the Arewa is not speaking for
no,
anybody.
They all have vested interests. They all have things they share with their people in government. What we're saying is that let us accept that Nigeria was not our making in 1914. Let us accept that the little discussion we had all the way to 1960 got toppled in 1966. Let us then accept that the product of that toppling, which is the current constitution, because from 1966 to date, all the 36 states that were created, who created them? Now they call me Abia State or Imo State or somebody else, Bayelsa State. There is none of the people in those places, like Delta State, cannot, the people of Delta in some areas were agitating for some autonomy. You now create a state and put the capital in Asaba. From that time to date, Delta State had not been the project of Ijo, Urobo, Ishekiri, and all of them.
Mr. Nadi, would you not rather wait? Let's just see this process. Because you have acknowledged that this is actually an act of statesmanship by Mr. President.
I commend him. I commend him.
At least to have you, to prove you right or wrong. Is it not a bit too early?
I was actually expecting to see your name in that list.
Of course, they know they will not put my name on any list of people who are going to be discussing, who are going to a meeting in which Nigeria is held sacrosanct, in which somebody will write in the terms of reference that the outcome of the conference will be integrated into a constitution, meaning that they want to preserve that constitution by all means. And we are saying we will not touch one alphabet from inside this constitution. So these are the two grounds, these are the two positions that will have to be married through the next few days.
But in the event that this conference is convoked, in the event that the different nationalities meet and do discourse, would you now throw away all of that? Because your view can be seen as extreme. It is either this, it is either all or nothing. Do you think
there is no halfway? There's no halfway in a matter of reconstruction. If you want to put a 40-story structure on this ground now, you know it will take it. But the first thing that will happen is that bulldozer has to enter here to level it, to be able to put up a new structure. Anything that is built on this foundation of falsehood, and if you let us take it down to our people, In saying that we the people, we're saying that we have submitted by ourselves. So it's a forged signature by which Nigeria is selling 3 million barrels of crude oil every day and sharing the money, $250 million every single day in Abuja, to the exclusion of the owners. If you come to the provisions inside the Constitution, you then begin to see a chapter 2 that provides for all the good things of life, but a clause in section 6C, and shame on the lawyers in Nigeria, including the justices up to the Supreme Court, that will hold this document up and say it's a constitution. Because those who wrote it had taken all of the content of the Treasury as their own by that provision, to say that nothing is for the citizen except as they deem fit. That is the unjust.
Mr. Amadi, before we let you go on this segment, like Victor asked, and yes, it's the heart of the matter.
The thing to do is to
allow
the ethnic nationality
and have this discussion without what you are saying, and this scales through.
If somebody,
what does that
Abacha held a conference, but Obasanjo held a conference. What happened to them? Because somebody sat in Abuja, like David Mark is sitting, to tell us that it is how they do it that we have to accept. What we're saying is that they must accept that sovereignty belongs to the people and let them organize themselves and send those who they will truly wish to discuss their future for them in a conference that will end in a referendum.
Thank you, sir, for coming.
Thank you very much, sir, for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
We have been speaking to Mr. Tony Nnadi, who is the Secretary General of the Lower Niger Congress and the convener Movement for New Nigeria. Thank you once again.
The story have never changed. It's the same thing. All the cosmetic measures being applied on Nigeria to make Nigeria, to get Nigeria going, is not working, because everything that is being done by the senators, by the members of the House, or even executive branch or the judiciary, they are all skirting around the fact that the foundation is faulty. Nigeria's foundation, rooted on 1999 Constitution, is a fraud, and you don't expect this fraud to fix itself. Nigeria needs a surgical operation. That's the only thing that will work.
Where do Christians suffer the worst persecution in the world?
Nigeria.
China, Iran, Somalia? International Christian Concern has just unveiled its 2021 report on the top persecutors of the year. ICC lists 3 top persecutors this year: the worst country, worst group of persecutors, and the worst individual persecuting Christians. Well, joining us to discuss this year's list and to explain about what's happening around the world is ICC President Jeff King. Jeff, it's good to talk with you again. So let's get right into it. The worst country persecuting Christians this year. Surprise, it's not North Korea. Which country is it and why?
Well, yeah, Kim Jong-un, North Korea, it's always going to be a top performer, right? But what we looked at was like, how many Christians are being killed presently? Is it a problem that's not addressed? We chose Nigeria. It's a surprise for a lot of people. But Gary, in the last 20 years, 100,000 Christians have been killed. 3 million plus Christians have had their lands, farms, homes stolen from them. And the government is part of the problem. So we chose Nigeria.
Well, I know a lot of people say Nigeria, that's just Fulani herdsmen and so forth, but it goes well beyond that. Tell us a little more.
Well, this is the problem. We work in Washington, D.C., and we're working with the government. And so that's the line that comes from the Nigerian government. They want to frame this as a conflict between farmers and herders. It's not a conflict. It's a one-sided war. It's a genocide against Christians. There's Boko Haram also, but the Fulanis have done much more damage. The Fulanis are going in. These are armed groups that go in and shoot up Christian villages and take their land. And what's going on is it's a war that never ends, is never addressed. The Nigerian military never goes after the attackers. There's no arrest, there's no battles, there's nothing. And the reason is that, look, Muslims are in control of the police, the army, and the intel agencies. So the whole security apparatus of Nigeria is controlled by the Muslims. And so the fix is in is the phrase. It's like it never gets fixed. It's never addressed. Nothing ever happens.
Okay, Jeff, let's move on then and discuss the worst group persecuting Christians this year. It's not Boko Haram or Al-Shabaab. Who is it? What are they doing?
Well, it's the Taliban. And Gary, look, the Taliban has been, torturing, murdering Christians for years. The problem is that now they are in control of a state, and they have a potent intel security apparatus set up by us, but now they're in control of it. They're calling Christian leaders. We know you. We're watching you. We're going to come get you. They're going door to door. And unfortunately, just this past 2 weeks, they grabbed the first Christian. And what happens is they'll torture him. They'll find out who the other Christians are he knows. And then if he won't turn back to Islam, they'll kill him. And there's going to be a whole bunch of that.
Well, a lot to pray about on that. Now, the worst government leader or person persecuting Christians, it's not Canada's Justin Trudeau for shutting down churches and arresting pastors during the COVID pandemic. So which government leader did you list as the top persecutor targeting Christians, and why?
Well, you already nailed it. It's North Korea, and it's Kim Jong-un. So either the country or he are going to show up in the top list. But look, the whole North Korean state exists to serve him and to keep him in power and the Kims in power. So we chose him as the individual doing the worst job against Christians, doing the most persecution against Christians. I think people know it, but look, if a Christian is caught with a Bible, if they're a real Christian, the regime will take 3 generations of one family and stick them in prison for life. And these are prison camps that are designed to slowly kill off people.
And of course, we know that you have to worship the leader there. Juche is their faith, and that's worship of their leadership. I know there are many other countries of concern, especially, let's say, India, where attacks against Christians are on the rise. Tell us what's happening there, Jeff.
Well, India is especially disturbing, Gary, because India has a constitution that guarantees religious freedom, and they have a tremendous track record. But what's happened is you have some hyper-nationalists, some fundamentalist Hindus that have gained control. The Prime Minister Modi, is a radical Hindu. His party, the BJP, these are radical Hindus. They believe quite fervently that India is only for Hindus, and in India and Hinduism are fused, and there's no room for anybody else, and they're doing everything they can to slowly strangle Christianity. You won't hear it from his lips. He's a smart politician. Listen to the BJP leaders, listen to his leaders in the party. You'll hear it quite clearly. They're not shy about it.
And Jeff, I know China and Pakistan, those are always places of concern. And you've been to many of these countries. You've met with many persecuted believers around the world. Which country really is driving you to your knees in prayer right now? Maybe what one should we keep our eyes on?
Well, I pray for Nigeria constantly. We do a lot of work with the victims there. The 3 million plus that have already lost everything. Their homes have been stolen. 70 to 100,000 killed. The government is part of the problem, because just like you said, the government says this is just herders and farmers. It's a conflict. It's nothing but, and they are complicit in the attacks on Christians.
Okay, I know that you're hoping this report will put more pressure on these governments to affect change. Jeff King, president of International Christian Concern. Thank you, Jeff, for sharing your time and insights. We appreciate you and the work you're doing.
Love you guys and what you're doing, Gary. Thank you so much.
God bless.
Yeah, Nigeria is holding the country award, at that level, for persecution of Christians due to the involvement of government, the coalition of government in protecting the Fulani terrorists who are going across Nigeria, killing, sacking communities. Even government policies is designed to favor them. The government tries to take over, build forest reserves, cattle routes, Ruga, shoreline takeover, all sorts of programs the government have tried to put through in order to spread these terrorists across the country. These are all part of the agenda of the current government to carry out and fulfill the ideas, the imaginations of Ahmadu Bello, to extend the life of their caliphate that died when British took over Nigeria in 1914. So they have no interest other than to pursue this jihad and see it to a conclusive end by killing off indigenous nationalities, especially Christians. They've done it in the far north. All the Christian communities there have been targeted and killed and replaced or chased into IDP camps locally, where they get bombed by Nigerian Air Force or into foreign countries, neighboring Nigeria, into refugee camps. This is where the international organizations, especially the Christian-leaning organizations, needs to step up their game and expose what is happening in Nigeria, which the Nigerian government consistently lie about. They went to New York during the UN General Assembly in September, seeing Nigerians with their posters, patriotic Nigerians protesting against the killing of Christians and the destruction of the country. Nigerian government actually goes into New York, Bronx, to hire homeless people and other foreigners to counter-protest the expose from Nigerians against government collusion in terrorist activities in the country. I don't know what these people are thinking, but we know that there is no way Nigeria can recover except to go through multi-regional binding referendum. That's what will save the day. If not, if this joke continues, we're only delaying the inevitable. And that is a very terrible thing that will happen to Nigeria. To not arrest this situation now through a referendum, call for referendum to, calm nerves and let things, go very well for every section. Failing to do this is only going to cause more problem, more pain of separation. The Constitution is obsolete and represents incomplete decolonization. By Ndidi Owechwe. Independence from colonial masters was meant to be freedom for Africa. However, some 60 years later, freedom has continued to elude many African countries. That is because independence in itself is not freedom except when it is accompanied by self-determination for indigenous ethnic nationalities on their ancestral lands. Looking back at events in the 1950s, it becomes clear that corruption, injustice, and mischief were going to guide the new nation called Nigeria. Let us first consider a key index that was manipulated, that is, population figures, which determined representation in the parliament, distribution of resources, and distribution of federal civil servants, etc. Harold Smith, a British former colonial civil servant working for the Department of Labour before he died, confirmed that the figures of the census in 1952 had been inflated to favor the North, to make it seem that region had more than half of the total population. Armed with this window, Bello, the premier of the northern region, must have felt very confident when, just 12 days after independence in 1960, he boasted his vision and caliphate agenda for Nigeria, to be an estate of his ethnic nation, the Fulani, immigrant settlers in Nigeria, and declared, the South would be conquered territory and its people never able to control their future. Thus it was, with this caliphate agenda as guide, that when preliminary results of the post-independence 1962 census showed that the South had a higher population than the North, final results were never released, and so a new census was held in 1963 with mind-boggling figures that now made the North the most populous region in all of Africa, and therefore with a higher population than the South. Apart from untrustworthy population figures attributed to the North, the union called Nigeria was also shaky under its three regions because the three main ethnic nations were dominating the others. The Middle Belt had been lumped with the Arewa bloc into what was referred to as the Northern region. Joseph Tucker, a Christian and leader in the Middle Belt, had preferred there be a separate Middle Belt region because of the possibility of Arewa taking up Sharia. At the Willings Commission of 1958 in London, it was only with reluctance that the Middle Belt agreed to be part of the Northern region, having secured an agreement that Nigeria would always be a secular state. To date, too, the ethnic nationalities of the Middle Belt have felt dominated by the Hausa Fulani, and from at least 2017 began to say that they are not North Central but Middle Belt. In the eastern region, the other smaller ethnic nationalities felt they were being dominated by the more populous Igbo. Similarly, in the western region, the other smaller ethnic nationalities felt that they were being dominated by the more populous Yoruba. Their concerns were somewhat alleviated with the creation of the Midwestern region. What is important to note and retain is that, number one, at independence there were already cracks in the union because one party, referred to as the Caliphate, wanted Nigeria to be an estate of the Fulani and had an agenda that the indigenous peoples would not be able to control their lives. That means that the indigenous peoples would be denied their inalienable right to self-determination. 2. Even though there were three, then later four regions with self-determination, the more populous ethnic nations within them, that is the Yoruba, the Hausa, Fulani, and the Igbo, were dominating in their regions. They basically took over the sovereignties of the other ethnic nations. That means there was incomplete decolonization of Nigeria. This is where and why the liberation process of the NINAS, Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination movement, is important and includes processes for complete and full decolonization for every indigenous ethnic nationalities in the NINAS territory. What is now well known thanks to the Enlightenment work of the NINAS movement is that the illegitimate 1999 constitution foisted on Nigerians hijacks the self-determination of ethnic nations. Arewa bloc from the year 2000 unilaterally took up Sharia as a function of their own expression of self-determination, and that has been interpreted by the NINAS movement as Arewa having seceded from the Union. Since Nigeria is meant to be a secular country, now the rest of the country are regaining their own right to self-determination by NINAS movement's proclamation of constitutional force majeure on the 16th of December 2020. That started the process to decommission that illegitimate 1999 constitution. The NINAS movement uses a non-violent, orderly process that follows a similar path to what South Africa used to terminate their own apartheid constitutional order. It involves suspending general elections of 2023 to go into a time-bound transitional government. All government structures would remain in place, with regional referendums for self-determination conducted by ethnic nationalities. With the NINAS movement strategy, there will be negotiations where no indigenous ethnic nation will be left out. Each will be able to choose whether they want to be in the Union of Nigeria or not, plus whether they prefer to form a different union with culturally compatible ethnic nations, and if so, how. Every ethnic nation must now be at the discussion table, making discussions and being part of decisions. To repeat, for clarity, as it is important to retain and act upon this information, when the British left, decolonization was incomplete. The Caliphate took over their position as overall colonizer. In addition, within the regions, the smaller ethnic nations were dominated by their more populous ones, and their self-determination was being engulfed by them. The Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination movement is bringing about complete decolonization. Each indigenous ethnic nation in the NINAS territory, no matter its size, is equal to any other. There is no minority as classified by Bello. Each ethnic nation will be involved in the discussion about their future. Each ethnic nation will decide for itself, and each ethnic nation will have full self-determination to go in the formation of their choice. This is the liberation process of the NINAS movement for self-determination. For more information, check www.ninasvoice.org. Thanks for listening.
Iwukesan Vadale Enige Ehaimo Edion Ikbia Ihuo Isen Wuhan Niriwoto Sanrewe Mejoto Wao Otunatioli NINAS, Nigeria Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination. Na jonu hom na reo. Ono tunada wegi akoze nova de beale. Ose bo 2023 na ha bosibore. Ma mo bobo Beki Shirley. Olonu tunada wegi ebo ni majana. Naturally Nigeria. Okidonki ebo omulu. Okolo da semegbe. Emi ebe ahenya oria agboria mema meoria mi. Olokidoki. Ono tunani na sida wege ebare shabebu ne botioli constitution ole mane santioli ebuhi ye ebi omulu no owogi ole vuole wala esa mata wege era de nyaora ono kukwole ola ka hia siwori so that odia begi onorana ole oni constitutional ole ebuhina ole aka hasi ole aka hehe akwesegi aze alwe akoze ramde wegi oge no riwi one ebuhina me that time aba nkpokpano one ebuhina wegi mane nya oto naturally indigenous nationalities mamwa huni ihe Abuja niria nyama ogiva ge buhina maye tali maru bobo gi naze niru Abuja na nyama ge ebere wotori begia igo efe no ruboto emioko igo humo na koko mayeri ahụ ni na nire amị mali ọrụ eke no ebuhi naturally constitutional gbọgbaki no ma wako ta o ma ami gumada sikoko wegi ma mu ahụ no ma mu ni na ebe ma mo weke oto igo homo na amị mali oge mare ni na ole zo no rubuto ogia ene doni go mu no rebegia ami bakia na ye anoru eke no buhi na wegi ono gbebere ohi akigbolasa ma dagole ge ami bahia na ye igo na rekoko ma igo humu na rekoko igo na rekebe efe no ruboto amujo bi center natural Abuja ayego mu ewo gali ono buhi na natural constitution olere ahụ na ndamege exie wara ala ami bahia na ye ogine iwege ma na mo boy gbe ma oda ka komunya asabo himegbe uwabe owaye kiale e wara sabo yonu wabe eye mi wena o ma fi woto ofiwoku uku mu fie gerebegia aya sabo na wujede aware wege nya ge ma sabo na wujede e wa wo gboria aya sabo miole igwe kiri ọkụkụ agwụ mọni ịgwanara ọmụgo nina anọ n'ebe uhi na oyeri ahụ nina eli na sita gị ọwa ke mmadụ dịrọ anyị ọnụ se na ọsacha sebirio ọlịda gwe gị ukpede ni eneribi ugie uki igbeva alukpe n'ebochioli 2020 onu tunina sinanda wege onu ebuhi naturally constitutional okiki igbugen na abo onu ebo no sma naturally Nigeria na igbugon ki na abo abadaki wo hien na tare ina sabo arigbe na hia da odo de ka hion sole ase me ba lu onebu hina nigbu kina nanya ni na si wege ebe umuluno ebe hoge no ole ada wege asielu akuze ramde alo akuze ina zeni onebu nigbu gena no hoge vuana ole na si revewo ole mada wege okena remiege ayelu akuze o bebe awada lo ni ma si yero ati alo akuze o ono homo ni na si jere wa ha bo si waro egbe dama egbe fu waro me go to eba o.
Ninas, where we came from, where we are, on the road to freedom. Today, we speak of Ninas, but know that the struggle for the restoration of our sovereignty did not start today. As a matter of fact, the struggle started almost as soon as the sovereignty of the ethnic nationalities was stolen by the imposition of the 1999 Constitution, which maintained a unitary government. With the end of the military regime and return to democracy, there was great hope that the country will be returned to what the people had voted for, and that existed prior to the military intervention in 1966. The hope of the country was dashed when, instead of a return to a federal governance structure with multiple self-governing and autonomous government with their own constitutions, the government was kept centralized in a federal government that kept all the power, the assets, and resources of the ethnic nationalities. Making things worse, this so-called constitution was not put to a referendum, and so was not made by the people. Deprived the citizens of their right to benefit contained in Chapter 2, made federal character unenforceable, gave the lion's share of the oil and other assets to the far north through a federal account sharing process that was exclusively weighted to favor the far north and make corruption official. Let me take you back over 2 decades of our journey. It all started when the military regime of General Abdul Salami Abubakar imposed a unitary 1999 constitution, which in turn was a wholesale rival of the 1979 constitution that was also known to be a victory charter for the Nigeria-Biafra War of 1967 to 1970. When it was made public a few weeks after inauguration of General Obasanjo as president, a better half of those in the legal profession gathered itself at conference and, without much ado, recognized the flaws, loopholes, and selfish intentions, then concluded that the Constitution was not legitimate and would not lead Nigeria to any form of advancement. It was important that the mechanism or vehicle to set up a countrywide rejection of this forgery of a constitution was put in place. The journey commenced when, in 2004, the Pro-National Conference Organization, PRONACO, was established to revoke the damaged federal constitutional basis of Nigeria. PRONACO being the People's Sovereign National Conference of Ethnic Nationalities in Nigeria, convened in all ethnic nationalities, and quickly mandated its representation to go back to their people and to come up with ratified draft of how they would want to participate in the Union of Nigeria. The conference sat in plenaries across the cities of Lagos, Port Harcourt, Enugu, Jos, and Kano, then returned to Lagos for the final sitting, and in participation, conveners in the likes of Anthony Ehanoro, Wole Soyinka, Chukwu Emeka Odumego Ojukwu, and similar leaders across the territories. This resolution was an agreement derived from the Composite People's Constitution as presented and defended by ethnic nationalities representation in those sequential conferences. And it is important to know that there were observers from the international community, including the US and European Union observers. In August 2006, a delegate from Castina moved the motion for adoption of the draft People's Constitution that emerged from the 29-point resolution of the conference. in furtherance of the Chronicle Consensus to restore the federal basis of the Nigerian Union. In 2007, the Movement for a New Nigeria was set up as an enforcement of the consensus, at the time to exclude the 12 contiguous northern states that had introduced and embraced the Sharia legal system against the secular basis for Nigeria. The Allies had insisted that democracy and Sharia system could not coexist in the same political space, hence the need for a new vehicle, the Movement for New Nigeria. On the 23rd of May 2007, MMN, through its legal counsel, filed a suit at the Federal High Court Abuja to challenge the legitimacy of the imposed 1999 Constitution, seeking the termination of the entire Constitution. At the court hearings, which had the Attorney General of the Federation representing the federal government, legal representation of the National Assembly, and others admitted the people case which they could not defend the challenge, but insisted that the plaintiff had no locus standi. In English, the plaintiff had no status at law to bring in the case to challenge the legitimacy of the 1999 Constitution. Having acknowledged that the restoration of the people's sovereignty did not need the participation or permission of government, the joint multi-regional vehicle instituted the MMN Lagos Declaration 30th of June 2011, by which the Allies partner blocks, the Lower Niger, South-South, and Southeast, the Yoruba land, and the Middle Belt publicly rejected the Caliphate-imposed 1999 Constitution, mandating regional self-determination actions which included referendum and international outrage. In furtherance to the mandate of the MMN Lagos Declaration, the people of the Lower Niger on the 27th of April 2015 held the Solemn Assembly in Port Harcourt City to wholly repudiate the 1999 Constitution. In that assembly, the 1,885 ethno-linguistic map of the Lower Niger was adopted as a geographical basis of federating. The assembly mandated the distillation of character of relationship as well as asset protection and guarantee scheme to protect the asset of the indigenous people in other blocks of Nigeria. On the mandate for international outrage of the MNN Lagos Declaration, an LNCT visited Capitol Hills, Washington, to make a case for the termination of the operation of Nigeria's 1999 Constitution at the special congressional event on Nigeria in May 2015. The team also made informal consultation for the same matter at the UN headquarters in New York in the same year. 2 years later, still in furtherance to mandate of the MNN Lagos Declaration, the Yoruba indigenous people held the Yoruba Solemn Assembly at Ibadan on the 7th of September 2017. The Assembly publicly repudiated the 1999 Constitution as the basis of the Federation of Nigeria and proclaimed the self-determination right of the Yoruba land to reclaim autonomy of Yoruba land.
Here's news carried by the South China Morning Post, one of the largest national circulating newspaper in China. It reports that China is making an offer to send security team to Nigeria. This is in continuation of China's effort to take over institutions and space in Nigeria, just like they have done to Sri Lanka, to Uganda, Zambia, and other countries, poor countries where they are, third world countries where they are going to set foot and spread their tentacles. The West African country has been battling a series of insurgencies, and China has expressed concern about its citizens. China is expressing concern about Chinese citizens in Nigeria, and as a result, they want to send their military advisors, their military people. It's about the institutions. Remember they've been given loans that are not being paid for. Unpaid loans that are not being serviced. That is a precursor to taking over institutions. That's what China is doing here. Military and security training is a long-established method for Beijing to enhance its influence in Africa. China has offered to send criminal investigation experts to Nigeria to help tackle the country's security problems. They love Nigeria, China. The Chinese ambassador, Kui Jianchun, disclosed the offer on Wednesday during an event at Ahmadu Bello University in Zaria to celebrate a Chinese-funded scholarship. China never gives you anything for free. No. China does not give you nothing without something in return. And they're going to finish Africa. Just like they did to Sri Lanka. They took over Sri Lanka as a seaport. The same evil China is opposing UN probe of Tigray abuses by the government in Ethiopia. That's the type of country China is. UN Human Rights Council meeting requested by UN voted to set up 3-member team to investigate alleged abuses in the Ethiopian civil war. Just weeks before, Foreign Minister Wang Yi reiterated Beijing's support for the Ethiopian government because they are getting contracts from them. Current government of Ethiopia gave China contract to build, one of the contracts to build rail line that ran from Addis Ababa to Djibouti, because at the departure of Eritrea, Ethiopia became landlocked. China built that rail line on loan, and they provided the workers too. China. The challenges and fraud within the Nigerian
There's a
Constitution.
document labeled Constitution for Nigeria. But when lawyers who are lawyers are gathered, that document does not pass the test to be called Constitution, because Constitution is simply the union agreement. And Nigeria became one political union in 1960.
The collapse
There's
of
a
the union
document
agreement.
labeled Constitution for Nigeria. But when lawyers who are lawyers are gathered, that document does not pass the test to be called Constitution, because Constitution is simply the union agreement. And Nigeria became one political union in 1960 at independence on account of some agreements that were reached between the constituent components to become one political union. And those agreements that were spelled out in Lancaster House in 1959 eventually were products of the discussions that happened all through 51, 52, 53, when something extraordinary compelled a choice to be made on the kind of union, on the kind of partnership the otherwise independent regions that the British had governed separately will be entering at the point the British will leave. And the crux of that agreement, of that union agreement, was that there will be a federation of autonomous regions. Western region, we remember, had their own constitution as far back as 1957, while those discussions were, already going on. Because what I said about 1953-54 was when the push for independence had come to the point where, one of the ringleaders, Enohoro, moved the motion for independence on the floor of the parliament. The northern delegation of the time opposed that motion, saying that the northern region of the time wasn't ready to go to independence at that point. What was their reason? Ahmadu Bello spelled out their reason. He said that they would require a certain level of autonomy in terms of control of their assets and their governance structures as condition for going into any kind of union with these other regions. That's the western and eastern region of the time. Now, Ahmadu Bello, on behalf of that northern delegation, listed 8 demands that will define the level of autonomy they will have in order to become a part of the Federation of Nigeria. It took all the way from that 1953, because the meetings then began in 1954, for how that federation, that coming together on the basis of regional autonomy as defined by those 8 points. It was those 8 points that eventually, shaped the kind of the depth of the level of autonomy, what the regions will be able to do, and what they will allow the Union Office to do. They now finalized in 1959 at Lancaster House. That autonomy that we're talking about began with the regions having their own constitutions. Like countries who have, Germany will have its own constitution before going to the meeting of European Union formation. So the Western region got their own constitution in place in there's internal self-governance. The British allowed them to now begin to manage their own affairs in 1957. Shortly after, the Eastern region completed its own process. They were granted internal self-governance. 1959 was when the North finally got their acts together and had their own constitution and therefore their own internal self-governance. These 3 units then went to Lancaster House to finalize the terms by which they would become one country at independence upon the departure of the British. That was what delayed our independence from the time the motion was moved in 1953. And therefore, that level of autonomy in which the assets of the regions belonged to the regions, and they only contributed to the upkeep of the center for the limited, responsibilities they delegated to the center. The center was their union office. It was their own creation. The constitutions of the regions came first. The one that became the federal constitution was a matter of the regions donating powers. It was the powers they decided to delegate to the center at Lancaster in 1959 that became the contents of the federal constitution. And the money by which the center will function was to be contributed to them. 15% of their income was what they dedicated to, so you got your money, your assets were yours. You worked it to how it can produce more resources for you to be able to attend to your healthcare and your education and your roads, infrastructure, electricity, everything. We saw what Awolowo did in the West, scoring a lot of firsts. We saw what M.I. Opara did in the East, putting Eastern Nigeria as the leading the leading economy, the fastest growing economy in the developing world at the time. Everybody built their own infrastructure. The Ojiri power plants that have been shut down now for over 30 years was built by the government of Eastern region of the time, powered by coal, and powering all of the industrial designs of Eastern region of the time, including Port Harcourt. Oil and gas came later. The North also, they went into their own, they did agriculture, they did hides and skin. You heard about granite pyramids. When Western region built a university in Ibadan, the East built, the East built its own UNN, and then the North struggled and built Ahmadu Bello University. That was the kind of healthy competition that was going on at the time. Everybody trying to outdo the other, but it translated to only one thing, development for the people. And you prioritize what you wanted. And so if you prioritize wrongly, the outcome is here for everybody to see. And so that was the kind of thing that got them, moving fast and well until the accident of 1966, when the coups, when the military struck, and then those constitutions were taken down, and that was the end of that federation they agreed upon. Every other thing had been in position since that time to date, and therefore we don't have, the union agreement is what is in distress, what has gone bad. If we don't fix it, I tell you, the union is at an end.
End 1999 Constitution. Political parties close shop now. Here's an article on the prophets and the parlors. When Dr. Francois Duvela, better known as Papa Doc, held Haiti and his notorious secret police Tonton Makute and voodoo gangsterism, when children in poverty-stricken Haiti had become so plentiful and so cheap that mothers openly sold their kids for 40 cents, an equivalent of less than 200 naira. It was Catholic priests who precipitated the social crisis that snowballed into the fall of that brutal regime. 2. In Idi Amin's Uganda, many of us will know about this because we watched The Rise and Fall of Idi Amin, a movie that captured the atrocities of late dictator Idi Amin Dada. Idi Amin's Uganda, the voice of the church against that demented dictator was so loud that Amin personally shot Archbishop Lowon dead, telling his aides he lost his temper and shot him. 3. When the unbridled tyranny of Nicolae Ceausescu of Romania was raging, the church courageously took the fight to him, and consequently priests and other preachers who criticized his handling of human rights were arrested and sent to institutions like the Dr. Petra Groza Hospital in Bucharest to be diagnosed and treated of bizarre diseases like political paranoia, senile dementia, persecution complex, neurotic behavior, delusion, self-preservation drive, discordant character structures, etc. Just for the listener to know, Ceausescu did not end it well. He was eventually apprehended at the airport and executed along with his wife for the many evils and crimes that he committed against the country of Romania, including extrajudicial killings of his political opponents and all those that criticized him. 4. It was from the pulpit that Martin Luther King Jr. pulled the Negroes out of the pit and altered the contours of racial segregation in the United States. Race is still an issue after the death of Martin Luther King. It is still an issue in the United States, but he did something about it as a man of the pulpit. What about those in Nigeria? What are they doing? They are grinning ear to ear with the powers that be. They are feeling good, moving in their private jets from the money they collected from the poor and the contracts they render to the government. Number 5. In the Old Testament, when Saul became king of Israel and began his vindictiveness and his misrule, Prophet Samuel was a constant thorn on his flesh. You can read this more at 1 Kings chapter 22 from verse 6 to 14. When David, number 6, became king after the death of Saul, Prophet Nathan became the conscience of the nation. Remember how Prophet Nathan confronted David on the killing of Uriah and the taking over of his wife. Seven, through the reign of kings Solomon, Rehoboam, Abijam, Asa, and Jehoshaphat in Judah, and kings Jeroboam, Nadab, Baasha, Ela, Zimri, Omri, Ahab, and Ahaziah in Israel. This was after the breakup of the country into two. There was prophet Ahijah, Jehu, Elijah, Elisha, Micaiah, and others who were continually persecuted and even killed because they remained forthright in their watch over those making political decisions. I must add that Prophet Jeremiah was actually tortured, detained. He was in underground detention cell when Israel was invaded by the armies of Nebuchadnezzar that eventually destroyed the country and took them into exile for 70 years. Jeremiah remained steadfast even while in detention. And the king that put him in detention had his eyes gouged out. In the New Testament, John the Baptist had a brush with King Herod after criticizing Herod's taking over of his late brother's wife. John was arrested, imprisoned, and later beheaded with his head on a platter for birthday to the daughter of Herod's girlfriend. Number 9. Almost all the apostles of Christ were dogged after, persecuted, locked up, and some executed, or some thrown into hot boiling oil. Not because they were common criminals, but because of their unrelenting striving to hold power accountable. 10. In the days of yore, when the powerless heard that the prophets were coming, the polished oak tables trembled right inside the palace. Today, the church and the shepherds seems to be reading another scriptures. Rather than be the conscience, the church has either given up or is busy hating. 12. Those who are vocal are either supporters of one side of the looters or the other side, either hating because their benefactor is out or supporting because their benefactor is in. None support the masses. Nobody cares about the people. Nobody cares about the people. And it came to pass that even the laity, the congregations, are not in a hurry to ask for more than what they are getting from the pulpits. The pulpit has become the point of duping our people and misleading them. Nay, they want more, but more of the same. Wake up, pulpit. Drop a pinch of salt on the tip of our tongue and let us feel the taste again. Let the pulpits pull us out again out of the pit. This was written by Citizen Abajalingo with some input from me, Stephen. Here is a quick reminder to everyone in Nigeria or outside Nigeria, everyone related to the country. The powers to make a new constitution, are in the hands of the indigenous peoples. It has nothing to do with National Assembly or any part elected or government appointed or imposed persons. Constitution making has two stages. The first stage, number 1, is referendum or vote by the various regions to agree to be in the same union country with indigenous peoples from other regions. This referendum is explicitly the business of each region and again has nothing to do with so-called National Assembly or federal government. Stage 2, number 2, if the referendum vote is in favor of federation to form a country, different regions now, to form a country, then the indigenous peoples will elect among themselves those who will represent them to craft the constitution in conjunction with representatives from indigenous peoples from other regions. That's how countries are brought together, like different countries, different regions, different provinces provinces, different states come together to form their own country, to form a larger union that becomes country. Otherwise, those individual regions, they are nations on their own without the union. If the referendum vote is in favor to federate, to form a country, then the indigenous peoples will select among themselves those who will represent them to craft the constitution in conjunction with representatives from the indigenous peoples from other regions. The crafted constitution will be subjected to national referendum before it is adopted as a binding document. Again, this process has nothing to do with National Assembly or government appointees. This is how other countries that are doing well today are. This is how they came to be. Nigeria is operating a fraudulent document called 1999 Constitution. To obtain a properly made constitution, the two stages described above must be followed, and a transitioning body is required to oversee these two stages. The transitioning body will be selected by the indigenous peoples themselves, and not by any National Assembly or any government, state or federal. No. It is the people. It starts from the local. Just as they say all crimes are local, the power to control any space is local. It is the people. This is the message of NINAS, and we believe it is achievable through the alliance of the South and Middle Belt of Nigeria. Everyone is therefore encouraged to join NINAS through your regional platforms, blocks, example, Lower Niger Territory, represented by the Lower Niger Congress, Middle Belt Forum, representing the Middle Belt, and the Lanomo Odua, representing the Southwest. If, as it will surely happen, the blocks vote not to be part of any union called Nigeria, then the indigenous peoples within that block can choose any name they want to bear. But it must be a name which is agreed by all and not because a particular section wants that name or that they feel the name has been existing for 1 million years, and whether the other constituents like it or not, they must bear that name. No, it doesn't happen that way. Referendum is an inclusive exercise. The people have to make up their mind where they want to be, what name they want to bear. It's not imposed, never. Personally, I don't have any problem with the name Biafra, but it must be acceptable to all and not forced on any ethnic nationality. Secondly, each ethnic nationality must willingly agree and get their representatives to sign to be part of that footprint called Biafra. The map of footprint of Biafra should be by agreement and willingness of any ethnic nationality that wants to be part of it. Imposition of Biafra or by any other name, by any other group, should be by agreement and consent, willingness of any ethnic nationality that wants to be part of that nation. No imposition will work. It's just like Nigeria. Nigeria cannot be imposed upon the people. And so also no other thing can be imposed after we get out of Nigeria or as we are trying to get out of Nigeria. So it's still power to the people. And that is what NINAS is all about.
No society wants you to become wise. It is against the investment of all societies. If people are wise, they cannot be exploited. If they are intelligent, they cannot be subjugated. They cannot be forced in a mechanical life, to live like robots. They will assert their individuality. They will have the fragrance of rebellion around them. They would like to live in freedom. Freedom comes with wisdom, and no society wants people to be free. The communist society, the fascist society, the capitalist society, the Hindu, the Mohammedan, the Christian, no society would like people to use their own intelligence. Because the moment they start using their intelligence, they become dangerous. Dangerous to the establishment, dangerous to the people who are in power, dangerous to the haves, dangerous to all kinds of oppression, exploitation, suppression, dangerous to the churches, dangerous to the states. In fact, a wise man is a fire, alive, a flame. He would like rather to die than to be enslaved.
And that is why Ninas must succeed, because it is the new gospel unto our people. To be free, to organize ourselves, pointing us toward the direction of freedom, is the new gospel. To all people of Southeast, South, otherwise known as Lower Niger Territory, Middle Belt, and Southwest, or Oduduwa Nation. The call to get organized is for your freedom, for your empowerment. That's what it's all about. Nina's got it covered. Check it out at www.ninasvoice.org. ninasvoice.org. This has been the Voice of Liberty, Radio, Lower Niger Territory.
Brief introduction of our Lower Niger Radio. Lower Niger Radio is the initiative of a few individuals who saw the necessity of enlightening and educating our peoples in the Lower Niger Territory on the urgent need to be part of this liberation project of all the ethnic nationalities that are entrapped in the union of death Nigeria has become for them. Following the events happening in Nigeria today and always, I am sure nobody is happy with Nigeria as currently constituted. However, the owners of their respective ancestral lands in the South and Middle Belt formed a strong alliance for the single purpose of self-determination. This alliance is called NINAS, the Nigeria Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination, which declared a constitutional force majeure, CFM, on the 16th of December 2020. NINAS has 3 blocks, the Lower Niger, the Yoruba, and the Middle Belt blocks. NINAS cannot be pensioned without connecting it to the Lower Niger Congress. So, seeing and recognizing the enormous good work the Lower Niger Congress had been doing all these years, these few individuals formed a media team to help the Lower Niger Congress bring these messages of hope, trust, and truth to all our peoples in our homeland. These peoples include Anang, Ibibio, Efik, Ishan, Ijaw, Idoma, Igbo, Kalabari, Bini, Itshekiri, Urobo, Obolo, Ogoni, Ogoja, Ugep, and so many others. Join us today and be part of the People's Revolutionary Movement for total freedom from the oppressive and brutal caliphate-imposed document called 1999 Fraudulent Constitution. Power belongs to the people. Lower Niger Radio is your voice of liberation.
Small, intellectually, politically, and economically insignificant Africa. But is that really true? Now, here are the facts. Africa has a total area space larger than all of Europe, China, and the United States of America combined. Yes, it is 3 times the area of China. 3 times the area of Europe, 3 times the area of the United States of America. Meaning, you can transplant China, Europe, and United States, and several other countries on the Africa continent, and they will fit neatly. Africa is 30.5 million square kilometers and a youthful population of 1.3 billion inhabitants. China is 9.6 million square kilometers and 1.4 billion inhabitants. India has a total space of 3.3 million square kilometers and 1.4 billion inhabitants. Now, yet, Africa is projected as overpopulated, and pressure mounts on Africans and their leaders to depopulate. Why? Why? Now, please note, Africa is home to 60% of the world's arable land, 90% of raw material reserve, 40% of gold reserve, 33% of diamond reserve, 95% of platinum reserve, and holds the largest bauxite reserves in the world. Of course, in addition to manganese, woods, uranium, crude oil, and others. Yet, the continent is touted as the poverty capital of the world and ripe for depopulation. The question is, why? Well, President Jacques Chirac of France provides an illuminating insight. He said, "We bled Africa for 4.5 centuries. We looted their raw materials. Then we told lies that the Africans are good for nothing. In the name of religion, we destroyed their culture. And after being made rich at their expense, we now steal their brains through miseducation and propaganda to prevent them from enacting black retribution against us," unquote. Well, put simply, for over 4 centuries, Africa is not in control of its resources. Look, a 2016 study of Africa by the NGO called War on Want reveals that 101 companies, mostly British, control $305 billion worth of platinum, $276 billion worth of oil, and $216 billion worth of coal at 2016 market prices. Yes, they own mines or mineral licenses in 37 African countries and control vast swaths of Africa's land, 4 times the size of the United Kingdom. Now look, Africa subsidizes the rest of the world by $32 billion annually. A 2017 report by Global Justice Now and other groups estimates that $161.6 billion enter into Africa, while $202.9 billion leave Africa almost every year. For example, in 2017, Africa received a total of $19.7 billion in aid, but paid back $18 billion in debt repayments. Debt burden is killing Africa. African governments have borrowed between 25 and 75% of their GDP, but with little or nothing to show for it. Africans in the diasporas remit not less than $32 billion annually, but multinational companies siphon $32.4 billion in profits and illicit financial outflows. Look, an estimated $29 billion are stolen via illegal logging, fishing, and poaching annually. How can any continent, country, or people accumulate and sustain wealth, growth, and prosperity with such statistics? That's a great question. Well, look, hopefully, now you know your Africa better. Edmund Mbiaka once wrote, "Peace of mind always comes with knowing who you truly are, where you currently stand, where you positively need to be, and strongly believing in its possibility." Africa needs to control its resources, no doubt. For productive, patriotic, and effective leadership, we need our best and ablest citizens with fortified character, in local, state, and federal governments. This must be given utmost consideration in upcoming elections across Africa. Let me say it once more. Our problem is not the age of our leaders, but unfortified character. It is your responsibility to protect and defend your Africa. The starting point is to educate and transform the mindset of our leaders and peoples. Look, the least you can do is to assist with ensuring that this message reaches every African. Slavery destroyed us. Religion divided us. Ignorance controls us. And truth scares us. With these retrogressive forces, Africa will remain a dark continent. So we must renew our minds. Please share this video in support of my efforts at reconstructing Africa through mindset transformation. You see, together, we will reconstruct Africa and take charge of our destiny. For who controls Africa controls the world. I thank you.
Anything that will make you depend on this country called Nigeria, you are finished. You are doomed. Because you are suffering, you are smiling. Don't punish the people that went and nominate the Jagaban of Lagos, Tinubu. Stupid Nollywood people that is supposed to be thinking about the people that die in Turkey. They are busy endorsing Jagaban as the next president. President will kill them there.
John Okafor, Ibu.
If Jagaban rule this country as Nigeria, will leave this country. You will not see me again. He will not come and say, stupid man. He cannot come back to do what? Old man like that. Old man, when we are still alive,
people are engaged on talking about who will be the next president of Nigeria, a country that is already gone beyond recovery. I mean, what is Tinubu trying to do? Or who else? All those people that are pushing or angling toward election, like they don't see the signs, they don't see the handwriting on the wall, they don't see that Nigeria is completely gone. Our people are pathetic, like they are ready to do whatever because they don't care, they have no regard for the people.
Anybody that will endorse Tinubu, that person family, that will not enjoy 2022.
That's it. It's not over yet. Here is a prayer by the elders of Mbieri, where some criminals went to kidnap their Eze. I'm not sure if he's the one they killed and displayed in the marketplace or another one, but this is another prayer that is in line with the one we just had now. The number of people needs to be completely dealt with, and let these prayers come through upon them. Following the kidnap of Eze Madumere, the Eze of Mbieri, the Eze of Mbieri gathered at Oriemberi to make incantations and prayers for the release of their fellow Igwe. The prayer itself is against all criminal activities by different groups and state actors across our land. May this prayer come true upon them. Amen.
omere n'eke omere n'orie omere n'afọ ma ọ na nkwọ anyị si taa mberi bilie 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 mberi ụmụ gị anya ebe n'afa ndị egburu izu jee jiri nwa gị otu onye ọchịchị enyi kee asị m ala mberi ekwerela ha jụụ ọ nwoke ọ nwe ọ nwata ọ oki ndị ahụ bụ izu jee jiri nwamba eri chee oki emekwere nga hụ.
May there be no elders among them, among the killers.
Anya kpọkọ ndị ichie n'ala mberi anyị ebe n'akwa zanụnye taa zanụnye echi mpụta anyị pụtara taa o gosiri ịhụnanya nọ ha n'anyị anyị gaba n'ihu ụmụ mberi ma lee ka amụghị na-ahụnye aka anya bịa kpọrọ nwa gị anyị si taa ndị ichie lekwana obi ọjọọ nyenụnye obi ndụ ọganihu unyi ya gachie n'enyi ma ndị bịara enye aka n'imi rie enyi n'anya rie enyi n'ọnụ chai ga-eme gịnị ele na-ehụnyarịrị Chineke ebido igwe ele ebe nọ anya kpọkuo gị bịazanyo taa echi hụha ya ozugbo na ha aga aha ya ekwurira ha jụụ anyị atụpụ ọjị eke.
Here is testimony of a woman in the north that was kidnapped by the Islamic terrorists who are targeting Christians across Nigeria, including Muslims as well. But their main target is are the Christians because they are targeting across Benue State, Christian groups, communities in the north, in the east, in the southwest, all over southern Nigeria. These terrorists are going across state lines, doing all sorts of criminal activities. Here is one of the women that recently got released and what she had to say.
I saw horror. Wallahi tallahi idan abu yana kama da yawm al-qiyama. Allah ina gana gan shi when I was in captivity. I saw that. I saw horror. I still have nightmares, bad nightmares. Sai an rike ni har yau har gobe. Akan horrors din da na gani. That's why I left Nigeria. That's why I'm here. But wallahi tallahi, if you have not been through what we've been through, a lot of us that have been in captivity and been raped multiple times by terrorists, you would not know. You would not know the pain. You would not know the agony. Nobody stood. Nobody believed me. Nobody said anything. Nobody helped me.
What a sad situation.
No one. And that's what's happening right now to our children. That's what's happening right now to our children. They're being killed. Nobody's believing them. Nobody's saying anything. I'm angry. Nobody's accepting any refugee from northern Nigeria. Nobody. I was raped by terrorists. I was naked. I still have marks on my arm. I know what's going on. I know the pain.
The Islamic terrorists are raping women, raping young people, everybody. And Muhammad Buhari is struggling to call them terrorists. He is struggling to tag them terrorists. That's the government Nigeria have today. Terrorists are running Nigeria essentially. Terrorists are running Nigeria. This woman is almost hurting herself. She's been raped multiple times. Nigeria. Nigeria has mortgaged her future. And NINAS presents a golden opportunity to have Nigeria sorted out through referendums, multi-regional referendums, in the Lower Niger Territory, in the Oduduwa Nation, and Middle Belt Nation. That will save the day.
Behind the Middle Belt killings is Caliphate ethnic cleansing. Behind Niger Delta agitation is Caliphate seizure of oil and gas. Behind Biafra and Odua agitation, Caliphate imposed unitary Nigeria. Behind the Caliphate itself is the rogue 1999 Constitution. Elections 2023 is Caliphate push to retain the 1999 fraud. Nigerians, say no to any further election in the country. Let's take down the 1999 Constitution and save our people and our land.
The country is not burning for nothing. You probably have heard in the news in the last few days that a lady from the north, a Muslim lady, got crowned Miss Nigeria. And the reaction of the north is to send their Sharia police to arrest the lady. We're not in one country, and so we must part ways. Here is the parable of Europia, written by Femi Olufumilade. It touches on the very heart of the problem. Meanwhile, NINAS has given us the guideline, the processes that must be followed to get out of this mess called One Nigeria. Because we don't belong, really, we don't belong with the Ariwa 12 Sharia states. We do not belong. And we do not in any way impede them in following after their religious dictates. But the other question is, why are they standing on our way? Why are they being such an obstacle to seeing Nigeria peacefully sorted out? Why are they standing in the way of a lasting solution to the existential problem of Nigeria? Why are there such a clog in the wheel of progress of the nations being detained in one Nigeria under the 1999 Constitution? Imagine Hisbah arresting the parents of the Kanu girl who just won Miss Nigeria pageant. Those Islamists in the north of Nigeria are qualified to be a separate country governed by Sharia. That's what they all want. They are just like Afghanistan, if I may add. Don't mind the pretension to being some sort of liberal nationalists. It doesn't exist among them. They all want the Sharia, including the professors. They only differ on the type of extent because and the extent because each of the Islamic sects that are better among them claims superiority over the others. The Sunni have gained the upper hand, the president of Nigeria and most of the governors being part of the sect. But the other sects too, including Boko Haram, have members in powerful positions, including the armed forces. They are the ones who undermine the fight against insurgency. As the Yoruba would say, the insect destroying the vegetable plant lives on it. Let them have an autonomous nation with their preferred and chosen constitution based on this Islamic law. I mean, we are very, very free-minded in this matter. We wish the North what they wish themselves, which is Sharia state, like Somalia, Afghanistan, that's Yemen. This is who they want to be. If eventually they decide to be like Saudi Arabia or Kuwait or UAE, we also wish them all the best. But we need to go through referendum to sort things out and get things going the right direction, at least for our people. Give me and my own people the latitude to enact our own constitution and spell out how we want to be governed and our vision of our place in the world. We can associate as a confederacy the way Scotland, Ireland, Wales, and England have been for decades. That's the minimum for peace, harmony, and progress. It is crass ignorance on the part of supposedly educated people to think the solution is in being a Nigerian and forgetting you belong to diverse cultures. Exactly. That's stupidity. It's like the Roman Empire welding the French, Italians, Germans, Russians, Irish, and English into one country called Europea. Then the country isn't working. Excuse me. They perpetually quarrel over revenue sharing, power sharing, etc. They plot coup against whoever is in power based on the perception that he's favoring his tribe. Maybe he's Hitler favoring the German tribe. Then some idiots come up with an appeal. We are all whites. Let's see ourselves first and foremost as Europeans. Let's forget our tribal differences. If we can see ourselves as one, we shall be the hope of the white race. Europea is the hope of whites. Anybody who knows better and is warning that this is a structural problem, those who advise restructure or let each of the tribes decide how they want to be part of Europea, or those who wish to opt out altogether, be allowed to do so via a referendum. The ignoramuses shut down. I'll go over that again. Anybody who knows better and is warning that this is a structural problem, those who advise restructure or let each of the tribes decide how they want to be part of Europea, or those who wish to opt out altogether be allowed to do so via a referendum. The ignoramuses shut them down. They called them anarchists until a day came after the centralized authority lost total control over security. Dozens of armed groups are springing up outside the control of government to provide security. Eventually, a bloody civil war breaks out because of an election in which the ignoramuses have placed the hope of a messiah being elected. While those who know better won, the ignorant and puffed up illusionists call them doomsayers because they are living across the ocean in safety. A bloody civil war breaks out, election dispute, and who should control power, and great is the fall of the hope of the white race, Europea, by Femi Olufumilade. I pray that this doesn't come upon Nigeria, but it is up to Nigerians to decide how it goes, because the future looks very bleak for the country presently known as Nigeria. The future looks extremely bleak. Very, very bleak. That's the parable of Europea and the call by Ninas on which way Nigeria, the call for referendum, the most peaceful way to get things sorted out and put this derailed train on the track again. Whatever China's intentions with Nigeria, now that they are contemplating sending military to Nigeria to help protect Chinese in Nigeria, because Nigeria is going through series of insurgencies, including those that are being sponsored by the current government of Major General Muhammadu Buhari. It is incumbent, it is important upon all of us, especially those from Middle Belt, Lower Niger Territory, and Oduduwa nations, to press harder for referendum, because we need deliverance by all means, not just from the current Fulani-minded Nigerian rulers, but from predators like China. China is part of the problem that we're having now with regards to Nigeria. Whatever their intentions are, it is not for the good of our people. The New South should regard China as an enemy state. What they are doing is a decoy to do more harm to our people for the long term. That's what China is coming for. We should all go for referendum, press hard for referendum. We need referendum to set our people free. We need referendum to secure our space. We need referendum to stop the loan sharks from loaning to current terrorists minding Nigeria. We need referendum to protect our people and life and properties. We need referendum to secure the borders of our emerging nations. We need referendum to protect our people, to restore rule of law in our country. We need referendum to establish a country that has human rights to protect our people. We need a referendum for a country that our people can live in and be proud of mentioning to other people in other parts of the world. We need referendum to restore the dignity of citizenship and right to the land, ancestral people. That's not cheap. We need referendum to get to that and to give our people what they actually deserve, which is dignity and honor and respect. That's what NINAS is all about. That's what Lower Niger Congress is all about. That's what is at the crux of the matter. Here is the Nigerian Vanguard's live report of the World Press Conference held by NINAS, the Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities for Self-Determination, or NINAS, titled Why 2023 Polls Should Be Put on Hold, by NINAS. Reporting by Dapo Akinrefon. In Lagos, the Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination, NINAS, yesterday, that is December 19, this is December 20, warned that any attempt to conduct the 2023 general elections with the 1999 Constitution may truncate Nigeria's peace and lead the country to a failed state. It warned that nothing will get better in Nigeria under the unitary constitutional order, no matter who gets to power. Professor Yusuf Turaki, who spoke at a press conference on behalf of the NINAS Board of Conveners 1 year after the December 16, 2020 activation of the Joint Multi-Regional Constitutional Force Majeure, warned that failure to heed warnings may lead to grave consequences for Nigeria. Turaki said, nothing will get better in Nigeria under this unitary constitutional order, no matter who gets to power. Let us all remind ourselves that whether we seek regional autonomy, resource control, or outright exit from Nigeria to become an independent sovereign state, the first order of business is the decommissioning and easing out of the 1999 Constitution, then a transitioning process during which referendum, plebiscites, and negotiations for fresh protocols will be undertaken as indicated in the NINAS 5-point proposition. It is no longer a matter for debate that the source from which the woes and miseries of Nigeria and Nigerians flows is the 1999 Unitary Constitution of Nigeria. That the life of the 1999 Constitution is renewed and reinforced once every 4 years. through general elections, that only political parties contest elections in Nigeria as declared by the Supreme Court of Nigeria in a governorship election suit from Rivers State, that all political parties in Nigeria subscribe to the 1999 Constitution and therefore contest elections under that Constitution. This means that whichever party wins the general elections in Nigeria, the elected candidate must, as a prerequisite for assuming office, swear to and govern by the 1999 Constitution. This further means that after each round of elections, the Constitution and all the debilitating structures and provisions erected by it remain intact, and so also the woes of Nigeria and Nigerians, getting only worse. From the foregoing, it is clear that whoever genuinely seeks to extinguish the source of woes and miseries of Nigeria and Nigerians must find a way to break this set cycle of periodic renewal of the life of the 1999 Constitution by way of elections. Besides, he said, the new round of renewal for the source of our collective misery, that is, elections, is in 2023. It is obvious that the action to be taken to end our bondage and misery is to shut down the voyage to any further national elections under the 1999 Constitution, which merely renews our bondage. Turaki is the leader of the Middle Belt. Accordingly, guided by the 5-point proposition of the NINAS CFM of December, NINAS Constitutional Force Majeure of December 16, 2020, we must now brace up and prevail on the political parties to halt their preparation for the 2023 round of national elections so that the transitioning process can commence instead of wobbling on to another round of national elections in 2023 under the 1999 Constitution, as Nigeria could snap without further warning, having shown all the vital signs of a failed state. This is a wonderful release from Nina's Secretariat. I hope that the minders of Nigeria, those who erroneously think that they own Nigeria, I hope they are listening, they are paying attention. The people are not kidding. Our people are not kidding. We're serious. We're serious to have a binding multi-regional referendum that will be supervised by the United Nations for effective implementation of the results from Middle Belt, Lower Niger Territory, and Oduduwa nations. Notes on the self-determination goal of the NINAS campaign and the formations for the reinstatement of suppressed sovereignty. NINAS Secretariat, December 2, 2021. As we advance towards the terminal stages of the processes for the reinstatement of self-determination and sovereignty to the peoples of the NINAS Alliance territories, South and Middle Belt, trapped in the failed Lugadian experiment of 1914, whose sovereignties are currently suppressed and subsumed under the suzerainty of unitary Nigeria, erected by fiat upon the fraudulent 1999 Constitution of Nigeria. It has become necessary to once more shed some light on the formations in which the reinstatement of suppressed sovereignties are being undertaken. From the onset, as can be verified by a review of all our public communications documents, including audiovisuals over the years, the goal of the entire intervention we have driven since 1999 as PRONACO, MNN, and NINAS had always been to deliver the sovereignty of the peoples of Nigeria back to them. Subject to referendums and plebiscites, the formations in which the sovereignties will be pursued and taken back are also clearly articulated, hence the maps that accompany our propositions at each stage. Prior to the emergence of the NINAS map, which shows a 4-block internal delineation, the MNN map of Nigeria, broken into 4 blocks, has been in the public domain since the 2007 court suit challenging the legitimacy of the 1999 Constitution. The 4-block map represents the formations in which the inevitable union reconfiguration that would have followed the demise of the irreversible 1999 Constitution is being discussed and undertaken, all the way to referendums and plebiscites. Just like the question of geographical formations for aggregating, the degree of autonomy desired by the peoples of each of the blocks in the NINAS alliance will also be determined by the referendums and plebiscites. The two questions, that is, geographical formations and degree of autonomy, can consolidate for resolution in the one referendum or plebiscite. These notes of clarification became necessary as a response to what seems like a confusion, real or contrived, regarding the formations in which the peoples of each bloc in the NINAS alliance will step into their freedom when the bondages of unitarism and suzerainty masquerading as Nigeria are broken, as well as the degree of autonomy represented by the self-determination being sought on their behalf by NINAS and its constituent components. All other arrangements regarding relationships between the various blocs in the NINAS alliance will be undertaken in freedom and self-determination, meaning that such arrangements will be determined strictly by agreements freely reached by the blocs, not by fiat or any form of imposition. May we request that those who understand these clarifications to please explain to others who may not. It is an important part of the liberation campaign to educate and enlighten the people seeking the liberation, as it has become clear to us that the ignorance of most of our people has been a great obstacle to our path to freedom, and that ignorance is being exploited by sundry mischief makers for all kinds of purposes, including quick gains.
Where do Christians suffer the worst persecution in the world? China, Iran, Somalia? International Christian Concern has just unveiled its 2021 report on the top persecutors of the year. ICC lists 3 top persecutors this year: the worst country, worst group of persecutors, and the worst individual persecuting Christians. Well, joining us to discuss this year's list and to explain about what's happening around the world is ICC President Jeff King. Jeff, it's good to talk with you again. So let's get right into it. The worst country persecuting Christians this year. Surprise, it's not North Korea. Which country is it and why?
Well, yeah, Kim Jong-un, North Korea, it's always going to be a top performer, right? But what we looked at was like how many Christians are being killed presently. Is it a problem that's not addressed? We chose Nigeria. It's a surprise for a lot of people. But Gary, in the last 20 years, 100,000 Christians have been killed. 3 million plus Christians have had their lands, farms, homes stolen from them. And the government is part of the problem. So we chose Nigeria.
Well, I know a lot of people say Nigeria, that's just Fulani herdsmen and so forth, but it goes well beyond that. Tell us a little more.
Well, this is the problem. We work in Washington, D.C., and we're working with the government. And so that's the line that comes from the Nigerian government. They want to frame this as a conflict between farmers and herders. It's not a conflict. It's a one-sided war. It's a genocide against Christians. There's Boko Haram also, but the Fulanis have done much more damage. The Fulanis are going in. These are armed groups that go in and shoot up Christian villages and take their land. And what's going on is it's a war that never ends, is never addressed. The Nigerian military never goes after the attackers. There's no arrests, there's no battles, there's nothing. And the reason is that, look, Muslims are in control of the police, the army, and the intel agencies. So the whole security apparatus of Nigeria is controlled by the Muslims. And so the fix is in is the phrase. It's like it never gets fixed. It's never addressed. Nothing ever happens.
Okay, Jeff, let's move on then and discuss the worst group persecuting Christians this year. It's not Boko Haram or Al-Shabaab. Who is it? What are they doing?
Well, it's the Taliban. And Gary, look, the Taliban has been, torturing, murdering Christians for years. The problem is that now they are in control of a state, and they have a potent intel security apparatus set up by us, but now they're in control of it. They're calling Christian leaders. We know you. We're watching you. We're going to come get you. They're going door to door. And unfortunately, just this past 2 weeks, they grabbed the first Christian. And what happens is they'll torture him. They'll find out who the other Christians are he knows. And then if he won't turn back to Islam, they'll kill him. And there's going to be a whole bunch of that.
Well, a lot to pray about on that. Now, the worst government leader or person persecuting Christians, it's not Canada's Justin Trudeau for shutting down churches and arresting pastors during the COVID pandemic. So which government leader did you list as the top persecutor targeting Christians, and why?
Well, you already nailed it. It's North Korea and it's Kim Jong-un. So either the country or he are going to show up in the top list. But look, the whole North Korean state exists to serve him and to keep him in power and the Kims in power. So we chose him as the individual doing the worst job against Christians, doing the most persecution against Christians. I think people know it, but look, if a Christian is caught with a Bible, if they're a real Christian, the regime will take 3 generations of one family and stick them in prison for life. And these are prison camps that are designed to slowly kill off people.
And of course, we know that you have to worship the leader there. Juche is their faith, and that's worship of their leadership. I know there are many other countries of concern, especially, let's say, India, where attacks against Christians are on the rise. Tell us what's happening there, Jeff.
Well, India is especially disturbing, Gary, because India has a constitution that guarantees religious freedom, and they have a tremendous track record. But what's happened is you have some hyper-nationalists, some fundamentalist Hindus that have gained control. The Prime Minister Modi, is a radical Hindu. His party, the BJP, these are radical Hindus. They believe quite fervently that India is only for Hindus, and in India and Hinduism are fused, and there's no room for anybody else, and they're doing everything they can to slowly strangle Christianity. You won't hear it from his lips. He's a smart politician. Listen to the BJP leaders, listen to his leaders in the party. You'll hear it quite clearly. They're not shy about it.
And Jeff, I know China and Pakistan, those are always places of concern. And you've been to many of these countries. You've met with many persecuted believers around the world. Which country really is driving you to your knees in prayer right now? Maybe what one should we keep our eyes on?
Well, I pray for Nigeria constantly. We do a lot of work with the victims there. The 3 million plus that have already lost everything. Their homes have been stolen. 70 to 100,000 killed. The government is part of the problem because, just like you said, the government says this is just herders and farmers. It's a conflict. It's nothing but, and they are complicit in the attacks on Christians.
Okay, I know that you're hoping this report will put more pressure on these governments to affect change. Jeff King, president of International Christian Concern. Thank you, Jeff, for sharing your time and insights. We appreciate you and the work you're doing.
Love you guys and what you're doing, Gary. Thank you so much.
God bless.
NINAS, the Nigerian Indigenous Nationality Alliance for Self-Determination, is an alliance of ethnic nationalities from the Middle Belt, Southwest, and Lower Niger region. On the 16th of December 2020, NINAS declared a constitutional force measure against the illegitimate 1999 Constitution. NINAS demanded that the federal government acknowledge the constitutional grievances expressed by the ethnic nationalities, as well as begin the decommissioning of the 1999 Constitution, and no further election should be conducted on the 1999 Constitution until all grievances are resolved. To support NINAS and the constitutional force measure, sign the petition at www.ninasffn.org/register to end 1999 Constitution now. To speak with NINAS, call the number 0823-425-4584 or 070-5924-9885.
Lower Niger Radio is your station for all things about self-determination, nation building, and liberty. With all the challenges and insecurity in our ancestral lands, the survival of our peoples and the political arrangements they decide on is our goal. We discuss solutions. We bring you messages of hope, truth, and trust. So, tune in today. Lower Niger Radio is the voice of liberty for the ethnic nations of the South, South, and Southeast. We are here for the peoples of Anang, Bini, Isan, Efik, Ibibio, Igbo, Ishekiri, Ijo, Igede, Kalabari, Obolo, Ogoja, Ogoni, Okrika, Urubo, and all the others. Lower Niger Radio, your voice of liberty.
Notes on the self-determination goal of the NINAS campaign and the formations for the reinstatement of suppressed sovereignty. NINAS Secretariat, December 2, 2021. As we advance towards the terminal stages of the processes for the reinstatement of self-determination and sovereignty to the peoples of the NINAS Alliance territories, South and Middle Belt, trapped in the failed Lugadian experiment of 1914, whose sovereignties are currently suppressed and subsumed under the suzerainty of unitary Nigeria, erected by fiat upon the fraudulent 1999 Constitution of Nigeria. It has become necessary to once more shed some light on the formations in which the reinstatement of suppressed sovereignties are being undertaken. From the onset, as can be verified by a review of all our public communications documents, including audiovisuals over the years, the goal of the entire intervention we have driven since 1999 as PRONACO, MNN, and NINAS had always been to deliver the sovereignty of the peoples of Nigeria back to them. Subject to referendums and plebiscites, the formations in which the sovereignties will be pursued and taken back are also clearly articulated, hence the maps that accompany our propositions at each stage. Prior to the emergence of the NINAS map, which shows a 4-block internal delineation, the MNN map of Nigeria, broken into 4 blocks, has been in the public domain since the 2007 court suit challenging the legitimacy of the 1999 Constitution. The 4-block map represents the formations in which the inevitable union reconfiguration that would have followed the demise of the irreversible 1999 Constitution is being discussed and undertaken, all the way to referendums and plebiscites. Just like the question of geographical formations for aggregating, the degree of autonomy desired by the peoples of each of the blocks in the NINAS Alliance will also be determined by the referendums and plebiscites. The two questions, that is, geographical formations and degree of autonomy, can consolidate for resolution in the one referendum or plebiscite. These notes of clarification became necessary as a response to what seems like a confusion, real or contrived, regarding the formations in which the peoples of each bloc in the NINAS Alliance will step into their freedom when the bondages of unitarism and suzerainty masquerading as Nigeria are broken, as well as the degree of autonomy represented by the self-determination being sought on their behalf by NINAS and its constituent components. All other arrangements regarding relationships between the various blocs in the NINAS Alliance will be undertaken in freedom and self-determination, meaning that such arrangements will be determined strictly by agreements freely reached by the blocs, not by fiat or any form of imposition. May we request that those who understand these clarifications to please explain to others who may not. It is an important part of the liberation campaign to educate and enlighten the people seeking the liberation, as it has become clear to us that the ignorance of most of our people has been a great obstacle to our path to freedom, and that ignorance is being exploited by sundry mischief makers for all kinds of purposes, including quick gains.
And the Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination are calling for a new constitution that will capture the needs of all ethnic nationalities in the country. It warned that nothing will get better in Nigeria under the unitary constitutional order, no matter who gets to power. Professor Yusuf Turaki, who spoke at the press conference on behalf of the NINA's Board of Conveners, warned that any attempt to conduct the 2023 general election with the 1999 constitution may lead the country to a failed state.
The idea of anarchy, because some people are fixing the constitution, if you don't allow the National Assembly to fix the constitution, there will be anarchy. Not at all. What we're asking is that this 1999 constitution, let all Nigerians phase it out. And then we have a good way of developing a constitution, legitimate constitution for the whole of Nigeria. The way this present 99 constitution is being implemented is not to the best interest of some sections of Nigeria.
Those politicians that are talking about elections under that constitution are telling us that our sovereignty is now with them. I pray they don't find out on the streets, like it happened in many jurisdictions, that our sovereignty is not with them. And talking about election that is coming, is Nigeria meant for election or election for Nigeria? People are talking about debt. People are talking about impoverishment that has made Nigeria the global capital for poverty. Everything that will fail has failed. And we know that it is this constitution that is directly responsible for everything we complain about.
The constitutional force majeure and the countdown to the enthronement of the will of the people. Being the text of a stock-taking status and next steps statement presented December 19, 2021 by the Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination, NINAS, at a World Press Conference in Lagos, 1 year after the December 16, 2020 activation of the Joint Multi-Regional Constitutional Force Majeure, CFM. Team, terminating the fraud of 1999 protocols. Dear compatriots and gentlemen of the press, whereas A, by a joint multi-regional constitutional force majeure, CFM proclamation, the Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination, NINAS, declared a union dispute on the ground of grave constitutional grievances, with a 5-point demand and a 90-day period of notice to the government of the Federation of Nigeria, within which formal commitments must be made by the federal government of Nigeria for the resolution of those grave grievances, failing which the people of the Alliance territories may reconsider the limited toleration and allegiance being extended to the disputed 1999 Constitution. An online petition addressed to the UN Security Council was launched by NINAS to keep the international community abreast of the development in Nigeria regarding the aforementioned union dispute. B. For ease of reference, we reproduce here the 5-point demand of the NINAS CFM, Constitutional Force Majeure, which now stands as the 5-point proposition of NINAS to peoples of Nigeria, currently being pursued vigorously by the peoples themselves to retrieve their sovereignty, hijacked since 1967 by the federal government. Unquote. 1. A formal announcement by the federal government of Nigeria acknowledging the constitutional grievances and sovereignty dispute now declared by the peoples of South and Middle Belt of Nigeria. 2. A formal commitment by the federal government of Nigeria to the wholesale decommissioning and jettisoning of the 1999 Constitution as the basis of the Federation of Nigeria, as was done by the government of apartheid-era South Africa in 1990. To commence the process by which the apartheid constitution of the then South Africa was eased out. 3. A formal announcement by the federal government of Nigeria suspending further general elections under the disputed 1999 constitution, since winners of such elections will swear to and govern by that discredited constitution. 4. A formal initiation of a time-bound transitioning process to midwife the emergence of fresh constitutional protocols by a two-stage process in which the constituent regional blocks will at the first stage distill and ratify their various constitutions by referendums and plebiscites, and in the second stage negotiate the terms of federating afresh as may be dictated by the outcomes of referendum and plebiscites. 5. A formal invitation to the peoples of the South and Middle Belt of Nigeria to work out and emplace a transitional authority which shall specify the modalities for the transitioning process, including the composition and mandate of the transitional authority, as well as the time frame for the transitioning and other ancillary matters. At the expiration of the 90-day notice, March 16, 2021, a 30-day period of consultations was extended to the state governors and other elected officials from March 17, 2021, after which another 120-day period of consultations was extended to the peoples of Nigeria and the stakeholder segment of the international community from April 17, 2021. Concluded August 16, 2021. Thereafter, a million-man freedom march was staged at the UN headquarters in New York, September 14 through 24, 2021, during the 76th session of the UN General Assembly. D. The outcome of these notices and consultations has been spectacular and successful as they forced to the front burner a much more enlightened debate around the agitations for a grand reconfiguration of the damaged constitutional foundations of the distressed Nigerian Federation, producing a countrywide consensus against the unitary constitution of Nigeria. E. Specifically, the federal government of Nigeria, in response to the NINAS Constitutional Force Majeure, rushed to the National Assembly for Constitution Amendment. Here is Ahmadu Bello's mission statement and battle script of October 1960. October 12th, barely 11 days after Nigeria's paper independence, on October 1st of 1960. Here is what he had to say. The new nation called Nigeria should be an estate of our great-grandfather, Othman Dan Fodio. We must ruthlessly prevent a change of power. We must use the minorities of the North as willing tools and the South as a conquered territory, and never allow them to rule over us, and never allow them to have control over their future. This is 1960. Now consider how the North went to set up Sharia during Obasanjo's presidency. And Obasanjo, who has always been a slave to the Arewa, called it political Sharia. That was effective separation from Nigeria, but Obasanjo didn't react very well. Instead, he sent Nigerian military to go, the same Janjaweed soldiers, to go and kill off people of Odi and Zaki Biam. Now, or even the killing of MASOB members or imprisonment across Southeast. Now, this is how Nigeria has been going. Consider what this Ahmadu Bello said in 1960 to what Muhammadu Buhari is carrying out today. And you get to realize why Nina's movement is the way to go. The dominoes are falling for Nigeria. I mean, it's all going. You know, the union is going down. You know? So all that we're doing, we're buying time. But the country is already gone down the cliff. Only a multi-regional referendum will rescue the situation. Anything else is merely postponing the evil day. And that's very unfortunate.
What can you say about the recent increase in the electricity tariff?
Electricity tariff? It is appalling. That is the reason why I have been in a companions lacuna.
Wow.
Not a recapitulation. But let me tell you this, that it is Leka and Pongwatidos, that in a Lekotla, in an Imbisu, Flakidos, and innovative matters were excogitatedly ruminated. We also see how the revidistical politicals move from budget disappearance to budget doctoration. Now, we are faced with a duplicating, exasperating, a rebarbating, and a homogeneous electricity tariff. And this tariff is emulating with a financial lobotomization. But I pray that this is not ignite a clamorous demonstration. Now, come to think of it, how dare they deplete the citizens of the ossiferous and vociferous modus vivendi? Enough of this vilification and solecism. This is execrably pugnacious, pestilential, and attenuating. Imagine the imbibition of the political rodomotives, which has kept us in an urgent humiliation. Why? Now, Nigeria is in a political somnambulism and molocution. Nigeria is in a financial and economic bantigism. Look at the way the game politics has become epocable. What a political holy-poly. What a political hoity-toity. What a political foodie-toody. What a political hocus-pocus they have come. What a political jabberwocky. What a political bobbycon. What a political couple de call.
Sir,
with this concentration, I ask that you accept my pentination circumlocution. Accept my pentination circumabagos, guadalucans, and madilucans. But I will tell you this, I will not koto in their puru. Thank you. I will refuse to koto in their puru. Thank you.
so rise and report cassava. Whatsoever I and I sow in this world, more shall reap. 'Cause I'm a living man, got no lot of what's to do. Send down the rain. Papa, 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 yo, ya, 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 yo, send down the rain. I'm a living man, I've got no lot of what's to do. Send down the rain. Mama, 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 yo, ya, 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 yo, send down the rain. Papa, 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 yo, ya, 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 yo, send down the rain. Jah is my song and that one make me feel so strong. Jah is my song that makes me feel so strong. No matter what they say, even if they say I'm wrong, I'm gonna feel strong 'cause I know I'm gonna live long. Oh Lord, 'cause I'm a living man. I got a lot of what to do. Send down the rain. Papa, 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 yo, yaga, 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 yo, send down the rain. Mama, 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 yo, ya, 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 yo, send down the rain. 'Cause I'm a living man, I've got a lot of what to do. Send down the rain. Papa, 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 yo, ya, 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 yo, send down the rain. God is my song and that one make me feel strong. Even when I'm wrong, I'm gonna live long. God is my song that one make me feel strong. Even I know I'm wrong, I know I'm gonna live long. Yeah. 'Cause I'm a living man, I've got to love and what to do. Send down the rain. Papa, 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 yo, ya, 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 yo, send down the rain. Mama, 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 yo, ya, 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 yo, send down the rain. I'm a living man, got a lot of what to do. Send down the rain. Mama, 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 yo, yaga, 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 yo, send down the rain. Papa, 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 yo, yaga, 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 yo, send down the rain. 'Cause I'm a living man, I've got a lot of what to do. Send down the rain.
Nigeria nationhood, cohesion, do we have one? I know we don't have one. Nigeria is still yearning for nationhood after her independence since 1960. Perhaps one of the greatest fault lines we have is the way itself by which we came together, cobbled together by Lord Lugard on the 1st of January 1914. Perhaps one of the most or the strongest fault lines is the way we were even named when we were formerly called Royal Niger Company Protectorates. And one young lady felt that name was too long. And she wrote an article in the London Economic Times on the 8th of January 1897. I said we should call that country, that area around the Niger area, which was how we came by the name Nigeria. We didn't really agree that we were going to be one country. The Berlin West African Conference of about 1844 to 1845 merely partitioned West Africa amongst the Portuguese, the Germans, the English people, and all that. So it was not as if we agreed to come together as one nation, which is why everyone is still suspicious of the other one. We already had the Hausa city-states, the Igbo city-states, the Karen Bonu Empire. Remember, we had great kingdoms, the Oyo Empire, the Benin Empire. Remember the great role of Oba Ovorami Nogbaise, the man who told the British, don't visit Benin during that holy month in December of 1897. And the British said they must visit. And of course, the guards who were in charge of the moat seized them and killed them. That was what led to the infamous Benin punitive expedition of 1898, February, led by a British who led 1,200 troops. Didn't we know about people like great kings like Oba or like King Jaja of Opobo? They were already there. Moremi, Queen Idia. So we had our set ways of life, and we were happy before the British came with their mercantilism, holding the Bible in one hand, and of course, slave trade on the other hand. A trade that was to ravage us for over 500 years before people like William Wilberforce, Thomas Clarkson, even our own Olaudo Equiano stepped in. And before the great American, Abraham Lincoln, on the 19th of November, 1863, abolished slave trade, for which, of course, he was promptly executed in 1865. So the problems have been there. That is why no Nigerian believes I am a Nigerian. If you ask me, I will say I'm from Ijukwe, a small village near Agenibode, in Esako, East Local Government Area of Edo State. Because unlike what President Kennedy once told the Americans, think not of what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Nigerians ask themselves, what has Nigeria done for us that we are in turn expected to do much for her? That is why go around Abuja or Lagos or any city in Nigeria on Sundays and you see the various town unions, because the people believe more in their town unions, in their village enclaves, than that contraction called Nigeria, which is practicing unitarism rather than federalism. And my bishop brother narrated the history very well. The American Revolution, the independence of 1776, and of course, the Philadelphia Convention between May and September 1787, where they decided to have a more perfect union with 50 confederates coming together. They were already confederates, but they needed to have a more perfect union. It was that convention, at that convention, that they agreed on certain irreducible minimals of government: federalism, presidentialism, the doctrine of separation of powers, which had earlier in 1748 been popularized by the great French philosopher Baron de Montesquieu. It was at that conference or convention they agreed on the doctrine of judicial review. It was at that conference that Washington himself was thrown up, who became the first president of America. It was at that conference you had the great federalists like Alexander Hamilton, John James, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison. Great Americans that wrote the American Constitution, which today has just about 27 amendments and about 7,891 words. Unlike our Constitution, which is as big as a briefcase and is unworkable because it is not the people's constitution. Now, what happened at that conference is that the people decided to come together to believe in a document, in a constitution, which was people-driven After the 50 states came together, 36 states, and then subjected it to a referendum. So I've always asked the question, why is Nigeria, why are we afraid of that word referendum when we hear of a referendum, plebiscite? Didn't we do it here at least in 1963 on the 10th of August when the Midwest region was separated from the Western region to become the fourth region in Nigeria? So referendum is not something we should be afraid of. The process by which a constitution comes into being is even more important than the contents of that constitution, which is why Nigeria derived the present constitution of 1999, that is actually decree number 24 of 1999. So the American constitution was people-driven, unlike the Nigerian constitution that was a militarily imposed constitution. It can never enjoy the legitimacy, the credibility, the believability, and the autonomy of the people, because it is not autonomous. It is not people-driven. So Egypt did it. They had their own constitution. Iraq, Iran, after a referendum, Kenya, South Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, Eritrea. Why can't we have our own constitution? It is not that it will solve all the problems, but it will be the beginning of the solution to the problems, so that mutual respect will come in. We cannot have national cohesion in a state of inequity, in a state of social injustice, in a state of religious intolerance, in a state or a situation where some people believe they are born to rule and others are born to serve as clappers and as hewers of wood and drawers of water. Let me end, sir. Since you are warning me, the way late MKO Abiola put it, I always like to mimic him. Great Nigerian who won the presidency but was murdered and he never reigned for one day. He said, you cannot begin to talk about peace. There are different types of peace. In fact, the most peaceful place on earth is the graveyard, the cemetery. But that is not the kind of peace we want. The kind of peace we are talking about is peace that is imbued with social justice, egalitarianism, mutual respect, religious tolerance, ethnic tolerance. That is the kind of peace we are talking about. God bless Nigeria. Thank you.
Amidst the union dispute declared by the Nigeria Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination, NINAS, on December 16, 2020, when the regional political merchants are done with their horse-trading charade labeled political solution to separatists and secessionists, they will dismount from their high horses and soberly engage the self-determination questions arising from the grave constitutional grievances inflicted by Nigeria's imposed unitary constitutional order on the peoples of the distressed Federation of Nigeria. Until then, let folly reign in the refugee camp of regional renegades called Abuja, said by Tony Nadi, December 2nd, 2021. There's something else that is like this. That one had questions to ask. Here it goes. Wale Arishakola asked the following questions. He says, if anyone has any answers, they should please wake him up and in the morning and let him know what the answers are to these questions. What suddenly happened to the Bring Back Our Girls movement? Have all the girls returned, or it was a mere selfish project by aggrieved individuals? Number 2, why has Duzuki not gone back to court to face charges for his monumental fraud since he was granted bail last year? Does bail mean all charges have been dropped forever, or has he been going to court secretly? Number 3, those who promise that they will expose the sponsors of Boko Haram as soon as possible, What are they still waiting for? Are the sponsors still elusive 5 years down the line? We haven't had the name or prosecution of any sponsor. 4. Where is Sadiq Oguche, the mastermind of the Nyanya bombing, and Kabiru Sokoto, who was apprehended for the Suleja Catholic Church bombing? Where are they? 5. When Boko Haram members repent, unquote, and get rehabilitated, how do they not mention their sponsors? Also, how do we monitor them to ensure they don't go back to rejoin the terrorists? Number 6. Where are we on the sensational NDDC/off-mic exposure? Are the people just going to get away with such monumental fraud as exposed by Babio and Co.? 7. What is the outcome of EFCC's investigation into the alleged multi-billion naira financial misappropriation and embezzlement by the chairman and commissioners of Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission and illegal use of the commission's money against President's directive to buy expensive luxury cars for themselves and their spouses? Number 8. Where are we on the Magu issue? Is he still on suspension or has he been removed? Was he found guilty or was it just a setup? Number 9. How did the police arrive at discharging Abba Kyari without releasing the circumstances surrounding his involvement and vindication by the Special Panel of Investigation? Does it mean that FBI lied? Is it the duty of a police officer, crime investigator, to mediate between a teller and an international criminal? Number 10. When will we see the report of the NNPC audit that was promised to be released within the first 6 months? Anyone with sensible answers to any of or all of the above is invited to help out. This is courtesy of Advocacy for Good Governance Social Network. Again, the whole thing that contains all that Wale, what is his full name again? Wale Arishekola, the whole thing that the 10 questions he just put out now, they are all embedded in the Constitution of Nigeria. The 1999 Constitution is the reason all the problem, all the headache, all the stomach upset, all the challenges, all the lack of water, electricity, road, infrastructures, all the discrimination, all the bloodletting, all the Fulani terrorists. Muhammadu Buhari. It is because of that constitution. That's why we are where we are. And so the earlier we get it sorted out, the better for everyone. And it is the best thing that can happen to Africa, that we get it sorted out. Others will come to learn it from us. So check out ninasvoice.org, lowernigercongress.org. Notes on the self-determination goal of the Nina's campaign and the formations for the reinstatement of suppressed sovereignty. Nina Secretariat, December 2, 2021. As we advance towards the terminal stages of the processes for the reinstatement of self-determination and sovereignty to the peoples of the Ninas Alliance territories, South and Middle Belt, trapped in the failed Lugadian experiment of 1914, whose sovereignties are currently suppressed and subsumed under the suzerainty of unitary Nigeria, erected by fiat upon the fraudulent 1999 Constitution of Nigeria. It has become necessary to once more shed some light on the formations in which the reinstatement of suppressed sovereignties are being undertaken. From the onset, as can be verified by a review of all our public communications documents, including audiovisuals over the years, the goal of the entire intervention we have driven since 1999 as PRONACO, MNN, and NINAS had always been to deliver the sovereignty of the peoples of Nigeria back to them. subject to referendums and plebiscites, the formations in which the sovereignties would be